Hey, good morning. How you doing, folks? Welcome to Praizion Saturday. I hope you're doing great today. Today, I've got a treat for you. I've got 3 people who killed the exam in the past week and a half, and I'm going to be sharing some of their lessons. I also want you to know that I am going to be dropping some gold throughout the week. But in order to get this gold, you're going to have to sign up for our Facebook group. It's called Savage on Saturdays, of course. So you can search for it and you can ask to be let into the group. Okay, it's exclusively for people on these calls. All right, so welcome. Let me know how you're doing. How you doing this morning? How's your prep, PMP exam prep going? Are you making headway? Are you getting a firmer grasp of the PMBOK guide? Talk to me. What's new in your world? Anybody got certified in the past week? Talk to me. Let me know what's going on with you. Anyone PMP certified? I see you were probably wondering where I was in the beginning. Yeah, sometimes you just have to slow down, right? So that you make sure you check all the boxes and there's no fire drills when you actually start. So hello, everyone. Alejandro, Creighton, Ms. Man, Uaguitube, Yinka, good to see you. Rami, Amjad is taking the exam on the 14th. That is fantastic. Kim, good to see you. Olivia, everyone, good to see you. All right, let's get into it because we've got quite a bit to talk about. So, Tools and Techniques 6. What are we covering today? Lots of stuff. Risk reassessment, risk urgency assessment, rolling wave planning. We covered those last week. Now we're starting with the S's today. Schedule compression, schedule network analysis, all of the S's. And our intent is to actually get to the point where we can cover everything else to take us to the end of the tools and techniques. There are so many tools and techniques, it's a little bit overwhelming. So I'm glad we actually broke it down. Good morning, Bernadette. How you doing? Good to see you here. Stosh, thank you for coming. Adebola, good to see you. So we're going to cover all of these T's as well. The T's, the V's, all that stuff, all right? So one of the games I like to play is taking a look at all of these ITTOs and asking myself, do I know what this is at a very high level? So I'm just going to go through the S's: schedule compression, crashing fast tracking, schedule network analysis, a potpourri of schedule analysis that will enable you know how to work on your schedule, how to crash it, how to fast track it, whether to do that, what your float is. So this is a bucket load of schedule analysis techniques. Scheduling tool like MS Project and Primavera, 7 basic quality tools. Which ones come to your head? You should know those 7. I've got an acronym for you I'll be showing you. Stakeholder analysis, which process is that used for? That is only used for one process in the PMBOK guide. Statistical sampling, where do we use that? Strategies for negative risks or threats. Hey, if you have not gone into the deep detail regarding this in your studying, highly advise it, because this is definitely a big one on the exam, I can tell you that. Also, strategies for positive risks or opportunities, also a big one on the exam. So the differences between share and all of that stuff, you do need to know. I might make up some random ad hoc quizzes as we go along. If I see I'm not getting the right answers, I might just give you a few ad hoc quizzes to kick the tires and make sure you've got that down. SWOT analysis. What does SWOT stand for? Kaya says, I need a study buddy in the Jayburg area. So if you want a study buddy, Kaya is asking if you want to be her study buddy or his study buddy. All right, Atif, good to see you. I know you're gearing up to kill this thing. All right, so team building, Tuckmans, we talked about him last week, technical performance measurement. Where do we use that? Give me some examples of technical performance measurements. I'm going to be asking you that when we get there. All of this stuff, hey folks, all of the stuff I'm showing you, this could very easily fill 60 questions on the exam, very easily. I could very easily give you 60 questions, all right? So we've got a lot to talk about. Now, if you go to the Facebook forum, the Facebook group, you'll find it, Savage on Saturdays. If you go there and you are PMP, I'm going to be asking you to share your goals. So if you have any books, stuff that you feel you don't need as a PMP, oh, I'm certified, I don't need those books, or I don't need those flashcards, I'm going to be asking you to kindly donate to people in the group that need help. So if there are people that don't have materials and you have and you're in their vicinity, you can put up a post and say, hey, I've got some books, who wants them? And first come, first serve, however you want to, dispose of your PMBOK guides and your study guides. Because I hear from a lot of students I can't afford books. So those of you who are PMPs already, share some gold with your PMPs to be. All right. So moving on here, I just want to call your attention to this. The reason why I stress this is there's so many mock exams out there, but a lot of them are fluff. A lot of them are just needlessly difficult in the wrong direction, or they don't even give you a good run for your time. Let's not even talk about money. You spend 4 hours on a mock exam, and you're like, what did I really learn from that? Or you go into panic mode, confusion mode. So I'm going to advise, take our mock exams. You find them on Praizion.com. Go to the homepage, $49.99. How much is the PMP exam? $555. It would make sense to take mock exams that can really kick those tires and make sure that you're good to go. All right, so check that out. This is the Praizion site. You want to click on this, the realistic 200-question PMP 4-hour mock exam, but they're actually 2 exams, and they're killer. And you're going to hear from some of our PMPs who got certified in the past few weeks how this stuff really helped them. All right, so take a look at Praizion when you're done. Get those mock exams, they really help you. Now it's time for our PMP exam bosses. The bosses who have dominated. That's what it's all about, dominating the exam. I want you guys to get to the point where you get into the exam and you're just having a party. You're just having fun with those questions. That's where I want you to get to. So let's take a look at our PMP champ. The first PMP champ for this morning is Heather. And in Heather's lessons learned, we can learn a very important point in anything. Don't compare yourself to the crowd. She says, all of the online forums I saw said something along the lines of, you must study no fewer than 3 months to get this right. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that. You must study no fewer than 3 months to get this right. Likely, any public or online forum, no matter how well intended they may be, don't buy into the groupthink. So if someone says, oh, there's no way you're going to get that done in that amount of time, don't listen, because a lot of the times people base their estimates on themselves instead of a general audience. Like, I've found a lot of people who have gotten certified based on a month. In fact, next week I'm going to be sharing lessons learned from Brandon, one of our students. He got certified in a little over a month after being on the Praizion learning management system. So don't listen to the crowd, okay? Be who you are. Act in the way that works, the way that you know works for you, she says. So let's take a look at some of the lessons. I'll read it because it's a little bit small. You might not be able to see it as clearly. Personally, I don't get motivated to actually work towards a goal until I have a firm date set. I scheduled my exam date in early December for January 27th. My thinking was, if I fail the first time, I still have a chance to take it again before 6th edition takes effect. With all the hectic pace or with the festivities of the season, I wasn't able to start studying until after Christmas. That gave me a solid month, give or take, work schedule, family priorities, etc., to work with. Be intentional. In order to study in a serious, concerted way, I needed to find a place that was not in my everyday world. I can't study at home as intently as I would like. I have no dedicated home office area. And the kitchen is where everything happens in my house. So when I'm able to find time at home, it's in a corner at my desk where I am now. This is not ideal because there is the regular cacophony of life all around, good and bad at the same time. So I spent several vacation days and Saturdays at the library. That sounds like what I did, folks. For my exam, library every Saturday unfailingly, because that was the only way I could get around it. So I hope this has given you some idea about what to do, right? So I spent several vacation days and Saturday at the library in a quiet room to get away from it all. In the first 3 weeks, December 26th to January 13th, I think I had 7 library days and 4 home study days with some hours sprinkled in at home when I could after library and work. Starting at the second week from the exam date, I spent a good 3 to 4 hours. Hey folks, the key word there is good. A good, not just any old 3 hours, but a good 3 to 4 hours. What does that mean? Good means you are fully concentrated. You're studying, maximum efficiency, you're not cutting corners, you're not dozing off, right? The coffee's there, but the coffee's not the main thing keeping you awake and active. That's a good 4 hours. Then 2 more home study days. So I hope this has given you some ideas. I took the Thursday and Friday before my Saturday exam off. Wow, the whole day off. Stayed home, kids were at school. Could spend a lot of time studying effectively that way, and studied from morning till night. So while Heather was not one of those who was full throttle down for 3 months, she had a plan and stuck to her own plan, built it around her schedule. So it is possible, yes, with kids, it is possible with job and family. It is absolutely possible. I had one of my students from Shaw, one of Warren Buffett's companies. Joey said, hey, Phil, I've got a newborn, and I study with my newborn on my lap. And I study on my phone with my newborn in one arm, and I'm looking at my phone studying. That is commitment. That is commitment. So in the same vein, having kids, being busy, you can find some low-hanging fruit opportunities to study effectively, is what she's saying. She keeps this lessons learned up in the next slide. Studying is cyclical. Deming was onto something. Read and practice, read and practice. Don't think you can do it all by just reading a book. Don't stick to reading only one book or source. So here's my advice. You know the book, it's in the background, it's right here, the mothership, right? You need the mothership, and then you need your study guide. And some of you actually won some study guides last week from us. So those should be coming to you in the mail this coming week. Those of you who got the basics, project management basics, which is a great, great help to understanding the landscape of the PMI. Don't think you can do it all by just reading the book. Don't stick just to reading one book or source, and work on applying what you've read to make it stick. So work on applying what you've read to make it stick. So I gave a shout out to Bernie a few minutes ago, exactly what Heather's telling us to do. Hopefully Bernie working with me, we're going to be able to take some real world scenarios from one of her projects, and we're going to take that and build real world scenarios exactly like Heather is saying. Okay? Puneet, welcome, welcome. Tippy Toes, welcome, welcome, welcome. Great to see you. Barani, good to see you as well. VJ, the man of the hour from last week, thank you. Sean says, can you take those mock exams in smaller chunks than at once? So Sean, we've got a 50 question mock. It's all or nothing. It's all or nothing. You know, the chicken and the egg, and the chicken and the pig. This is the pig. This is ultimate sacrifice for the bacon. We're all in for 2 of those mock exams, 200 questions, all in. Lock yourself in a room for 4 hours. But we have one that's 50 questions, okay? So we want you to be all in and have that 200 question experience. So you can't take those ones in bites, but there is one mock exam you can take that's 1 hour long, 50 questions. All right, next, I cannot emphasize enough how much good the practice exams did. And honestly, not even as they relate to the exam. For me, they were not much alike in form. The wording on the practice exams was quite often very confusing. I have my theories as to why, but that's a different conversation. They uncover your gaps and force you to do more research. Going through the books, you pick up on what you pick up, but you don't really know what's important. It's all important. That's a very good point. You don't really know what's important. It's all important. Here's why it's all important. I have a student of mine, PDU student, not PMP, and she came into the class and was sharing, you know, with the rest of the class who are PMPs to be, and she said she took the exam on like a Friday, failed it, went back in a week after, and all of the areas she got below in or didn't do too well in, she did extremely well in those areas next time, and the one she did well in the first time, she was kind of in the middle, you know, probably even dropped on a few. What did that show you? All of this stuff is so important because you don't know from which angle they're going to come. So it's often comical when people say, oh, did you get this? Did you get this? Did you get this on the exam? Because that has no bearing on what you're going to get. There's some folks who say, I had not one network diagram question. And just go to the forums. I don't know how much of social media groups you're in, but there's the PMI's group on LinkedIn and a few others, project management groups. And people are in lament all the time about how they prepared for critical paths and not one question came out. And yet you have other people who say, oh, I found those network diagram questions so hard. So it's all important. So it's difficult to hone in on what the exam creators may decide is what you need to know. The exam simulators are really good at exposing your deficiencies. That's a good thing. All right, so that's what it's all about, finding those areas you're weak. She then says, in the actual exam, it's all situational. The solution needs to match the scenario. That's the key thing. It's all situational, all situational. That's a big point. So, you know, if you've never heard it before, get ready to hear, you are the project manager in a project. This happens. What should you do? Blah, 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 all that stuff. The solution needs to match the scenario. The question usually sets you up. For example, you're initiating the project, lots of unnecessary information. You realize you haven't captured all of your stakeholders. What should you do next? Well, the answer is clearly not update the stakeholder register because you're just now initiating. So you need to identify stakeholders. Know in what process or knowledge area they've already put you. So note the subtlety there. And this is why when Heather sent this to me, I said, Heather, you would be a good trainer because there's a lot of subtlety here. I don't know if you caught the difference between update the stakeholder register versus identify stakeholders. If you've not identified stakeholders, you've got no register to update. So this is a clear example of the subtle trickery, the difference between update a stakeholder register versus identify stakeholders to create a stakeholder register. Subtleties like that. The PMP exam, a lot of it is indeed having the knowledge, but if you cannot apply the knowledge, you're in trouble. And also, if you cannot slow down and decode what they're really looking for, you're in trouble. So this exam is not just a knowledge exam, and it's not just the application of knowledge exam, but it's also having that, sense to move things around as you need to and dissect the questions as you need to. VJ says, congrats, Heather. I could correlate some of your study plans closely matches with mine. Hey Bruce, how you doing? Bruce says, the last comment is something I've picked up in my studying and mock testing. Before you answer, absolutely, Bruce. Bruce says, figure out what process or knowledge area you are in. That is so true. Because if you cannot figure out where on the grid of page 61 am I, and where am I close to? I'm here in this process, but what is on my right and on my left in the grid, and what is above? And do those have any bearing on the answer? All of these things are very important. So know in what process or knowledge area they've already put you. They will put you into a scenario, and you'll have no choice but to look around. Where am I? Where am I in this grid? All right. So she says, I didn't have a lot in the way of formulas, maybe 4 questions total. 4 questions, just 4? But they're up to 20 formulas, help. That's exactly what she's saying. You don't know where they're going to come from. I really wish I would have totally nailed it. So I didn't have a lot in the way of formulas, maybe 4 questions total. I really wish I had. She wanted more because she was ready. I spent so much time there while studying. So the moral of the story is pace your study and try to spread your focus as equally across all the spectrum as you can. The 200 questions you get are drawn randomly from a bank of something like 1,100, I think. Doesn't everyone think, Heather? So you don't really know where they'll focus. So I don't know, you noticed I added the word across all the spectrum because I want to stress the spectrum is broad. You've got the mothership. Where is it? The mothership, folks. And then in addition to the mothership, you've got an elaboration of the mothership. Not everything is entirely in the mothership the way you need to study it. So they call out earned value and give you a bunch of formulas. But do you see examples in this book? No. Do you see examples of organizational theory? No. So you do need to study the entire spectrum. Whatever you need to do to make sure your bases are covered, do it. And that's why I tell people who say, Phil, I went for a course 6 months ago. I'm like, you need to be on this stuff like on a regular basis. Why not go to PM Succeed, sign up, $75, and at least for a week as you're preparing, go through the entire syllabus. Don't say, I went for that course and that course, because the effect has worn off, and you need the knowledge ammo. So you need to cover the entire spectrum. I finished the exam about the 3-hour, 10-minute mark. Then I went back and reviewed my marked questions. I don't recall how many of the answers I changed. That took maybe another 20 to 25 minutes. So I don't know if you remember VJ's lessons from last week. Do not second guess. Do not change except you are 110% sure that that thing you're changing to is the correct thing. Excuse me. After that, I reviewed the exam starting at the beginning, changed an answer or 2, and kept reviewing till the clock ran out. I wasn't going to give up any of the time I had been granted. So this is such a smart thing to do. Because a lot of people, they just give up time. Time is indeed money, and time could be success. Here is a smart thing to do. I am a quick reader. I'm a very quick test taker. What is the best way to use my time? Plan out the exam. Breaks. 50 questions, break. 50 questions, break. 50 questions, break. Go finish it off. But instead, a lot of people, they go in and they mow down 100 questions and they keep going to the end. Don't do that. Take breaks, because if you're a quick reader, unlike me, I'm a very slow reader. And back in the day when I took my PMP exam, my first PMI exam, extremely paranoid. extremely, so I glued myself to the desk and just went through the entire thing and all the way to 3 hours, 55 minutes. But if you are a quick reader, quicker than me, a lot of my students, they are such quick readers. If you're a quick reader, it would make sense to put yourself under a little bit more control, take a break, clear your head. It works wonders. Come back, okay? So clear your head, come back. Clear your head, come back. You know, it's like getting rid of the cache, you know, on the computer. Get rid of the cache and come back and load it up again, get rid of it. You know, that transient memory thing going on. Get rid of the cache so you can process more information. And having a break. Hey, having a break at Prometric with a good old cup of water, I tell you, it could work wonders. And then when this goes on your head, if you are able to do that, or douse your face, it really goes a long way. So, you know, thank goodness they're not monitoring your activities in the bathroom. You're allowed to leave to the bathroom, but their proctors go to the bathroom and check and make sure you haven't left any microfilch or whatever you call it in the stalls. But you can go take a break and come back refreshed. So anyway, at the end, she says, to quote Bill Hicks, it's all just a ride. When you've put in all the effort that you have strength to, take a deep breath and say to yourself, I've studied as much as I can. Whatever the outcome, I'll be fine. It's all a learning experience, even failing the exam. So don't beat yourself up over it. One of my mentors, John Maxwell, says, fail forward. A lot of people fail backwards and then they go into recession mode. No, fail forward and let that be an accelerator to accelerate you and propel you into greatness. So failing the exam, not a big deal. Fail forward. If you don't fail forward, then it becomes a big deal. All right? So don't beat yourself up over it. At the end of the day, you're really only doing this for you. So be kind to yourself. I can't honestly say I would have been so kind to myself had I not passed, but I tell myself I would have. You got to be kind to yourself, folks. So those are Heather's profound lessons. So a huge, huge, huge thank you to Heather for that. All right. So those mischief makers who like coming on here to spam and bot our efforts, Isami, you've been hidden, and anyone else from those mischief makers group who come on here to try and derail the class, you're going to be deleted or hidden or reported. So don't try. All right, moving on here. We've got a question for you, an earned value question. Before I show you the question, let me see if there are any chats that came in. Okay. So, oh, Namdeo. So a lot of our questions, we make them even more difficult or different from the real exam. So I would like you to copy me in, send me an email about that specific question, and I would like to help you out with that. Yinka says, yes, I only came across about 4 formula questions on the exam last week. They were pretty straightforward. In fact, they were the simplest out of the 200 questions. Yeah, a lot of people think that formula questions, you know, are the order of the day on the exam. No, they're not. No, they're not. Deep Myth says, does that mean if the actual exam is simpler than the mock test? So you can send whatever you've got to support@praizion.com. Support@praizion.com. If you want to send that in, Namdi, or Ms. Man as well, send that to support@praizion.com. We'll pick it up. All right. So does that mean the actual exam is simpler than the mock test? For some people it is. I've heard from, I want to say about 70% of people tell me that our mock exam was more difficult than the real exam, but relevant. I've also heard from some people that the actual exam is right there on par. I'll say about maybe 20, 25% have said that. But I often get a student that says the PMP exam was so far away from what they'd studied. And it's all, it's all based on how much of our system you study. If you don't take two 200-question mock exams and all you took was the quizzes, you might find the real exam to be harder. But if you take our mock exam and our other exam, the PMP exam prep camp mock exam, you'll probably find the real exam not as tedious to go through and to go through the choices and all that. Alex says, I took breaks the first time and didn't have enough time. I was prepared the second. I finished with 30 minutes left and did better but didn't pass. Hoping the third time is a charm. We're going to make it happen, Alex. Hey, Alex, just do exactly what these PMP dons are saying. Put in the good time, put in the good effort. You can absolutely do it, right? Just learn. Learn from people's lessons, all right? Laurie, good to see you this morning. So Laurie, did you get a green light from the PMI for your application? I'm really sorry I haven't gotten to your email. I saw it and the whole week went in a blur. My goodness, I'm so sorry, Laurie. I need to take a look at that email. So have you sent it to the PMI? Let me know. Oh, I see. That's right, Laurie. Okay. Yep, the mock exam. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, you can't do that just yet, Laurie. So my bad. I don't know. Maybe I have responded. No, I don't think I have responded to you. So I need to fish out that email. Yeah. Hundreds of emails come through my mailbox every day. So I'll take a look at that, Laurie. All right. So folks, are you ready for the T to the C to the P and I? You were promoted to be director of your construction PMO. You promised CEO and management, based on your cost baseline, that you would install 10 servers to manage CAD efforts. CAD means computer-aided design. So you promised that you would install 10 servers to manage CAD efforts, $10,000 each, in 10 days at a rate of 1 server a day. At the end of 5 days, you have installed 3 servers. At the end of 5 days, you have spent $40,000. Your original estimate is flawed, and you run a new bottom-up ETC of $95,000. What is the TCPI based on this condition? Is it A, B, C, or D? I'm going to give you guys the PMI standard 1 minute and 12 seconds. So why don't you take a look, try and solve that, and let's see if you can get this TCPI. Now I want you to put yourself in real exam mode. If you were on the real exam, would you have answered that quickly? Or would you have taken another look at the question? Go into exam mode, all right? So I'm going to shut up for now. I'm going to leave you to get on with it. I'll see you in 1 hour, 12 minutes. So 1 minute, 12 seconds. Let's do it, do it, do it. Okay. It seems like we're going to have to review this one together, folks. I've only gotten a few answers. So I want you to choose an answer. Choose an answer. Okay? So we have a lot of people are saying it's C. A lot of people are saying, pretty much everyone says it's C, 1.15, 1.16. All right. So let's read it very carefully. Your original estimate is flawed, and you run a new bottom-up ETC for 9,500, or 95,000, I beg your pardon. What is the TCPI based on this condition? So what is the first thing you guys did? Chat into me, the first thing that you did. What is the first thing you guys did? Chat into me. The first thing you should do with a TCPI question such as this is what? What should you do, folks? Tell me, tell me, tell me. Okay, so Misman says, determine which TCPI equation to use. Very good. Amjid says, I guessed based on flawed. Either write the formula. Carlos, good to see you, man. How you doing? I hope you're doing great. Have you filled in your Excel sheet? Okay, let me know how you're getting along with that, Carlos. Deep Myth says, to find its EAC. Oh, find out if it's EAC based or BAC. Okay, Adebola wrote down the formula. So folks, first thing you want to do, your original estimate is flawed and you run a new bottom-up ETC. You want to look for a value that you're going to use for the equation to be used. So you know that the top, no matter what you do, is going to be what? BAC minus. Somath Gupta says, find the EV first. Thank you, Somnath. Absolutely correct. Find the EV. So Puneet says, BAC minus EV. That is absolutely correct as well. So for BAC minus EV, what number did you get? What is your BAC minus EV? What is the BAC? You guys probably realize the BAC, right? So what is BAC minus EV? Olivia says it's 70. 70,000. Let's take a look. Let's see if that's right. Key thing here is that your original estimate is flawed, and you run a new bottom-up ETC. So taking a look at this, let me just show you really quick. I'm going to advance the slide. I'll just explain really quick here. So there are a few things you want to know up front. Your PV, your AC, and your EV. So based on the schedule, the planned value, right, how much you should have done by this time is 50,000. The EV, because you got 3 servers done, is worth $30,000. So EV is 30,000, okay? And if you plug all of these numbers in, right, because it's a brand new bottom-up ETC, your EAC is going to be this, okay? So this is your EAC. It says you've done a brand new bottom-up ETC, so you can glean from the question, you need to go in this direction to find your EAC. And then if you plug in your EAC, as Olivia and others said, I think Somnath said this as well, 70K is going to be the top. The bottom is the tricky part. So I think 2 people out of the group got the fact that it is going to be 0.7368. And I think Olivia even rounded it up, because if you round it up, you get 0.74, but that's not in in the option, so you have to go with the closest. So those of you who guessed 1.15 without doing any of the formulas could be a little bit dangerous on the real exam. On the real exam, you want to make sure you max out this question if you've got the time to do it. Now, I would have guessed maybe a 1.15, perhaps it came down to the wire, but it's always good to follow through on the logic if you have the formula in your head and you know what the formula means. All right? So those of you who got the answer of 0.73, well done. Okay? Any questions about that? Do we really need to calculate? Yeah, you need to. You cannot estimate. The numbers never lie. One of my students said yesterday, he was the head of the maths department, he said the numbers never lie. That's Brandon. Brandon is right. Numbers never lie. You got to use the numbers. You got to use the numbers. You can't just guess. So they might say something, but your original estimate is flawed and you run a new bottom-up ETC. New bottom-up ETC alludes to an EAC. If you do a new bottom-up ETC, what is the TCPI based on this new bottom-up ETC? You would have to know that it's EAC at the bottom. So this is one of those questions. Amjad has typed in a grumpy face emoji or sad face emoji. You crack me up. Anyway, we learn from this. Let's have fun with it, all right? It's all fun. Let's have fun with it. All right, so that's TCPI. Let's move on. So schedule compression. We have two types of schedule compression. What are they? Type in. What are the two schedule compression types in your favorite book? What are they? Schedule compression. What are they? Okay, thank you very much. Fast tracking and crashing. Fast track, everyone's just typing that in. Achintia, good to see you this morning. Francis, good to see you as well. I didn't see you earlier. Thank you, Stosh. Thank you, Olivia. Sachiguns, good to see you today. Thank you. Everyone typed in fast tracking and crashing. Now, in which of these do we pay to expedite the delivery of, let's say, a sub-deliverable? You're on a project and you're paying to expedite the delivery of a sub-deliverable. Which schedule compression method is that? Paying to expedite the delivery of a sub-widget. Thank you, Carlos and Sachiguns and Amjad and everyone else who's typing in the answer. Very good. Thank you, thank you. I know you guys are probably aware of the next question. Overtime is an example of what? Overtime is that fast tracking. So you put several people on overtime so that they can carry out a task. What is that? Thank you, thank you, thank you for chatting in. Again, it's crashing. Awesome. So I'm just going to refer you to where this is. If you guys have not used the PMBOK guide as a tool, this page, you know, every chapter has got this page, you know, the dreaded pages 4-1, 5-1, 6-1. You know, there's so much content, but if you use this as a study tool and just look for commonalities, it could help. So schedule compression, you see it being mentioned in develop schedule and control schedule. All right, and in control schedule, you could use this when the project is live, of course, to steer the project in the right direction. So be careful on the exam for questions that allude to develop schedule versus those that allude to control schedule. You might want to look out for them because there's a difference between you are building your schedule and you realize that you would need to carry out a task sooner. You decide to plan to add more resources, blah, blah, blah. Which process is it? You're not in control schedule because you are not yet live on the project. But if it says In the middle of the project, you discover a problem, blah, blah, blah. You decide to add resources. Aha, that is controlling. So the subtleties between using schedule compression for planning versus using schedule compression for controlling will be obvious from the question. All right? So look out for it. So Bruce says, develop usually equals planning, controlling equals monitoring and controlling. Absolutely. So just look out for where they are, steering you towards, or as Heather said, where they put you. So where do they put you, right? What is the scenario? Are you in firefighting mode or are you in planning mode? Okay? So I can't remember exactly what I said, but what I said was, watch the question for you're in the middle of planning, blah, blah, blah. You decide to add more resources for this purpose, or you decide to run certain activities in parallel. But it will kind of give you a clue you're in planning. But if you're in monitoring and controlling, it will make it clear that your project is live, and as a workaround or some other type of plan, you decide to add more resources. That will be controlling. And yeah, I use the word controlling because it's less of a mouthful than monitoring and controlling. So I mean, you're in the monitoring and controlling process group, and you decide to add resources for that reason. All right? So schedule compression, know your crashing, know your fast tracking. Develop schedule, control schedule. Okay? Know that. All right. Schedule network analysis. So this is a potpourri of all sorts of analyses. So let's take a look. PMBOK guide. It's under section 6.6 in develop schedule. And it's called schedule network analysis. I'm just going to read it really quick, but this is definitely something that you have either encountered in your class or when you studied. So let me read it for you really quick. Section 6.6, page 176. Schedule network analysis is a technique that generates the project schedule model. It employs various analytical techniques such as critical path method, critical chain method, what-if analysis, and resource optimization techniques. To do what? To calculate the early and late start and finish dates for the uncompleted portions of project activities. Some network paths may have points of path convergence or path divergence that can be identified and used in schedule compression analysis or other analysis. So to cut the story short, folks, your forward pass, your backward pass in the context of the tasks at play, whether you are late, whether you are early, or how you see the project to be, that is really what they're talking about. But note, it's actually done in planning. So adjusting that schedule based on the network diagram that you have and using all of these things they've mentioned, critical path, critical chain, what-if analysis, and so on. Okay? So the critical chain, the key thing is your critical chain. I've got a question come in from Ravi. So your critical chain is your resource-constrained critical path. The critical chain is after the critical path. Critical path comes first. You find your critical path. Resources have been assigned. We know it's constrained, and based on that, we make adjustments. So the critical chain method is different from the critical path method in that it continues from where the critical path stops. And the key thing is you want to optimize it because of these resource issues. So you place buffers, right? Feed-in buffers and project buffers, collectively known as duration buffers. That's where you apply all this stuff. But the critical path method is where you do your forward pass, your backward pass, find your EFs and LFs and all that stuff. And that's why it all rolls under schedule network analysis, all right? Usually the critical path questions on the exam will show you a network diagram and ask you what is the float or slack. And if they ask you casually what is the float or slack, without going into free float or total float, you need to probably solve in both instances. And unfortunately, where they do not mention it, usually one of the answers is one that fits total or free, but not both. So if they ask you loosely what is float, you will not find both free float and total float in the answers, at least on the typical mock exams. They usually keep you in suspended animation and don't tell you which one it is because they want you to calculate both and then find which answer maps back to what they asked. Okay, so if what I'm saying is Greek, watch the videos on YouTube for the critical path, solving critical path, using the zero method. I use the zero method. That's my preference. I know some people use the one, but as long as you know what they're talking about. Carlos says, what if they don't show you the network diagram? Yeah, you're going to have to draw it out. So if they tell you the tasks are linked and they give you a table, yeah, you're going to have to take the table and create the diagram yourself. Amjid says, I always get confused in these three terms: project, activity, and total float. So I'm guessing, do you mean project float, total float, and free float? I haven't heard the term activity float, but I've heard the term project float and total float, Amjid. So project float is the amount of time you've got. If this is your customer, required end date or customer required due date, this is the project end date. This is when you end, this is when the customer wants it. That's the project float. Now, total float is the amount of time you can delay an activity without affecting the end date of the project. So let's say you've got activity A. How long can I delay A without affecting the end date of the project? That's total float. Now, free float is how much time can I delay A without affecting any of its successor activities, but it's the successor activity with the least float you want to look at. So if you've got A, B, and C, and let's say between A and B you see a free float of, let's say, 2, and between A and C you see a free float of, say, 5, you have to go with the shorter one of 2 versus the one of 5. I know it can be a little bit complicated. I wish I had a whiteboard to show you all this stuff. But probably I'll cover that in either another session, or when you join the group on Facebook, just ask and I'll post a video for you on that Facebook group. All right? Carlos said, that killed me. Yeah, those network diagrams. But here's the thing, folks. Network diagrams is important. Read it, do the best you can. But if on the exam you see a stinking question that is just going to take 10 minutes of your time, like it happened to me on my scheduling professional exam, my PMISP exam. I came across a question, but I was determined to answer it, and I wasted 10 minutes, waste of time. That is the only PMI exam I've taken where I was counted out, 10, 9, 8. And I wasted so much time on that question, I feel that that was the culprit why I was counted out. Now, I did well across the board on the PMISP, but it was a good lesson not to waste your time on one question, you know, because there's so many other questions, so many other fish to fry than worrying about just one that got away. So just be careful, except you've got a ton of time to waste. Tony, thank you for joining today. Tony is a PMP. And Tony says, Carlos, in that case, you need to draw it. Usually it won't be very complicated to draw. The schedule model. So let's read the schedule model. It's a little bit of an abstract term, but the schedule model is really all of that data that you've got from the scheduling activities that you've carried out. And this schedule model can be shown in a variety of ways. So let's take a look at 561. It says in schedule model, a representation of the plan for executing the project's activities, including durations, dependencies, and other planning information used to produce a schedule along with other scheduling artifacts. So in other words, it's really all of this information combined that you can use to see your schedule in different ways. You can see your, a representation of the schedule model could be in a Gantt chart, or it could be in a network diagram of sorts, or it could be anything that represents your start and end dates for all of the activities. So it's used a little bit abstractly in the PMBOK guide, but really what it is It's the collection of all of the events, all of the starts, all of the finishes, all of the relationships, all of the dependencies. That is the model. Now we can show the model in a variety of ways. We can show the model in just a basic tabular schedule, or we can show the model, like I said, in a Gantt chart or some other fancy chart. So don't lose sleep over the schedule model. It's one of those abstract terms, okay? There's a few terms in chapter 6, that may not show up on your exam, and definitely one you shouldn't lose sleep over. But if you understand the fact that within the schedule you have all sorts of data and interrelationships of the data, and as your schedule evolves, you're now making all of these updates to the starts and the finishes, the actual starts and finishes and all of that stuff. All of that constitutes what your model is, all right? So that was an interesting diversion from our schedule network analysis, because chapter 6 is the only one in the PMBOK guide that has how many different processes? Is it 6 or 7? 7 processes. The only one in the PMBOK guide that has 7. So it is a big one. But again, not one to lose sleep over, all right? Don't kill yourself. Do what you can. Leave no stone unturned. But if you come across schedule network diagrams on the exam, if you need to do something differently from what I did, which is take a best guess and move on, you may be doing yourself a lot of good, because there's some of these network diagrams are ugly. Let me show you something really quick while we're still here. This is actually a little bit important, but it will help you to begin to use your imagination for the exam. All right. So I would like you to take a look at an example they have here of a network diagram, and I hope I can find this quick, but I think this would be relevant to you guys who might have one question on the exam from this. All right, page 160. I would like you to take a look at this page. You see that network diagram on page 160? That one? Okay. I would like you to study that network diagram and know what on earth is happening in it. Because the network diagrams that you encounter could be complicated. They might have, start-to-start relationships with an addition, or start-to-start relationships with a subtraction, right? Or finish-to-start relationships with an addition or subtraction. Okay? So just know what that means. All right? Leads and lags, know what that means, just in case you encounter that on your exam. All right, but we'll continue the discussion in the group. That's why I put the group there. I know there's always a lot of questions and we're not able to get around to all of them. I'm sorry, that's so the page I was looking at is page 160, figure 6-11. All right. Lokesh, thank you for joining today. Good to see you. Amjad said, what best practice do you suggest to kill that question? Yes. So Amjad, here's my 2 cents. There are certain questions that Amjad wrote for the PMP exam. That's right. It's as though you wrote the question yourself because you know the answer, you're so sure. Those are the questions you want to find first. Do not waste your time on questions that you did not write. Questions that you cannot categorically say easily, that is the answer, and I can bet my money on it. If you are in doubt of certain questions the moment you see them, it's probably a good indicator that you need to take a best guess and move on, because a lot of those questions are a waste of time. There's actually no way you can answer some of them to 100% certainty. So what do? Take a best guess, mark it, move on. Come back at the end if you have time to review those. But you want to find the questions you wrote. Like on my exams, there are questions that I know, this is definitely one I would have written because I know it inside out. Okay, so those are the ones you want to find. Kevin, welcome to the group. Oh, Kevin, you're taking the CAPM. Are you taking the 5th edition or the 6th edition? Because if you're taking the 5th edition, this is a good place to be. If you're taking the 6th, it's not a bad place to be. As you see, all of this stuff you're talking about is also part of the 6th edition. but I'll be able to direct you better. Oh, then you definitely want to start off coming to these group sessions, and you also want to go to pmsucceed.com and sign up for the 1 month study. I know it says PMP Prep Camp, but don't be deceived. It's all based on this, right? I was just telling people on one of those live streams a few days ago, if you are a little bit nervous about the PMP, may not be a bad idea to register for the CAP-M first. A lot of people shoot the messenger when I say this. I'm not saying you're not smart, but if you've got the money and you like adventures, I like adventures, go to the Prometric Test Center. Register to be a member of the PMI, right? And then you're paying, is it $275 or less? I can't even remember, for the CAP-M. Take it for a test run, have fun, play with it. And then when you've done that, you'll have a better idea of what could happen, or should I say what would not happen on the PMP. If you can get through the CAP-M with, I would say, maybe 8, 9, 10 above targets, very good sign. If you are crawling through the CAP-M with targets, probably not a good sign. Because as a PMP candidate, I would have expected you to get definitely more than half above targets. So the CAP-M could be a good way, a little bit more expensive, but hey, people spend thousands of dollars on a course. I would say maybe a better investment is spend $300 out of that, or if that, on the CAP-M exam. I'm not sure how much it is. Kevin, you probably know more than I. But okay, so Kevin, as you study for the exam, my suggestion is stay on this. It is a knowledge test of this. The application is very diluted. The application of this, I would say it's probably about 10%, if that, of application-based questions. Majority of it is knowledge. And I've taken the CAP-M twice, so I know what I'm talking about. I took it in 2011 and 2016 because every 5 years it expires. So you definitely want to stay on this book, all right? Let's move on here from schedule network analysis used in developed schedule, all right? Here's a question for you. So let's take some time and read it. I have gleaned from a lot of social media conversations that some questions are long on the exam, but I also hear from students that the question could just be that and nothing else. So really depends. But anyway, here's a long one. I'm going to read it for you, just in case you can't see it. You use a COTS report that presents expenditures for the current performance period and from the beginning of the project for different levels of work breakdown structure components. Two team members, Joshua and Joseph, are discussing an analysis of project spending against project budget and calculating the percentage complete of tasks currently ongoing and project deliverables. What does this analysis of Joshua and Joseph describe? I'll let you read it in your head. Just type in 1 minute, 12 seconds, what the answer is. Thank you for chatting in. Okay. Have you made your choice? Okay. So let's see what people chose. Oh, it's all across the board. Okay, lots of people say it's D. Lots of people say it's A. Let me see if I can. Rodrigo, thank you for joining. Thank you for your chat. And everyone else. All right. Deuce Poppy, thank you for joining. Ken, good to see you on the call. All right, so let's read. Discussing an analysis of project spending against project budget and calculating the percentage complete of tasks currently ongoing and project deliverables. Calculating the percentage complete of tasks and calculating the percentage of project deliverables or currently ongoing tasks and project deliverables. So let's take a look at them right from the bottom. So, analysis of project spending against project budget. Okay. Could that pass for D, earned value management? Actual versus planned budget? EV versus AC? Perhaps. Yeah. Okay. Hold on to that thought. Variance analysis. Variance analysis is finding a variance between actual and planned. Can we infer that for sure? I'm a little less inclined to go with variance analysis. One of the things that I would like to strike out right off the bat is going to be variance analysis. And the reason is because variance analysis doesn't cover percentage complete of tasks. It does cover project spending against project budget in some way, but even then not so strong. But it certainly doesn't address percent complete of tasks and project deliverables. It doesn't really tell me anything about that in every instance. So I'm going to cancel C. Not going with variance analysis. Now we've got work performance data. And work performance data is what? It's a raw observation. Let's read in the PMBOK guide, because there's quite a few things we could learn from this question. So let's read on page 85. It says, work performance data are the raw observations and measurements identified during activities being performed to carry out the work. Data are often viewed as the lowest level of detail from which information is derived by other processes. Data is gathered through work execution and passed to the controlling processes for further what? Analysis. Keyword, analysis. There is no analysis per se in the data itself. So taking a look at this, it mentions Joshua and Joseph are discussing an analysis of project spending. Right off the bat, I am very, very much not inclined to go with B. I would strike B off. But I'm going to read the end of work performance data. It says, examples of work performance data include work completed, key performance indicators, technical performance measures, start and finish dates of scheduled activities, number of change requests, number of defects, actual cost, actual durations, etc. Actual cost. So there are some elements here, but when it talks about the analysis of all of this stuff, that doesn't fit work performance data, right? The percentage complete of tasks currently ongoing and project deliverables. I don't really see project deliverables being mentioned here. So I'm less inclined to go with this. So I'm going to give it a half-mast crossout. It has some good things, but I'm not completely convinced about B, all right? So I'm going to give it a crossout at half-mast. Not as bold as C, but yeah, I think I want to cancel that. So with B and C crossed out. If I look at earned value measurement, I am less inclined to go with earned value at this point, but I'm still going to keep it in my back pocket, all right? Now I'm going to go to the next one, A, work performance information, on page 90, and it says, work performance information is the performance data collected from various controlling processes analyzed in context. That word is of interest. Analyzed in context and integrated based on relationships across areas. Thus, work performance data has been transformed into work performance information. Data in itself cannot be used in the decision-making process as it has only out of context meaning. Work performance information, however, is correlated and contextualized and provides a sound foundation for project decisions. And then it says, work performance information is circulated through communication processes. Examples of performance information are status of deliverables. Status of deliverables, okay. I see a correlation there. Implementation status of change requests and forecasted estimates to complete. That sounds kind of interesting. One more thing I would like you to do to contextualize what you're going to choose is to go to the control schedule process, and I would like you to take a look under control schedule, the output, WPI, page 190. It says, under work performance information from control schedule, the calculated SV and SPI time performance indicators for WBS components, in particular, the work packages and control accounts, are documented and communicated to stakeholders. That's chapter 6. And then let's go to chapter 7. Let's go to control schedule. Let's take a look at the WPI from there and see what work performance information we glean from control cost. So we are on page 225. So it says the calculated CV, SV, SPI, CPI, TCP, and VAC values for WBS components, in particular the work packages and control accounts, are documented and communicated to stakeholders as WPI. So folks, at this point, I am going to cancel D because D is encapsulated in A. So D, sorry. Bye for now. Bye B, bye C. If your answer was A, I doff my hat because that is the correct answer. This is work performance information. That fits best. So if you go through really, really quick, you may miss some of the details, but your EVM is in this, and the question somewhat alludes more to these plus these being this. So you cannot look at the question in isolation of chapter 6, chapter 6, chapter 7, and chapter 4. And that will give you work performance information. All right? I was not the question writer. This is one of my question writers having some fun on this one. And his explanation is, work performance information provides information about the completion status of the deliverables and what has been accomplished. For the example, Joshua and Joseph are discussing an analysis of project spending against project budget and calculating the percentage complete of tasks currently ongoing. Key thing is that deliverable, okay? That immediately threw me off variance analysis, and I got rid of that. But I hope you had fun with it. Very subjective. These are the kinds of questions you could get on the exam. Very subjective, and you really have to think quick. Now, we've spent almost 10 minutes on that, but on the exam, you've got to do it in less. So you need to be going through at a very quick pace, analyzing. This is what makes the PMP exam rather challenging. So WPI is the best. I would like you to go back and read WPI, read it very clearly. Go through every chapter you see WPI. Ask, what is in that WPI? Did you know that earned value was part of WPI? Because that's a trick. On a lot of questions, You could get one of the things that is in the answer, and if you go with that thing, you're going to miss the real answer. All right, PMP hustle. So you know how we do it. You know what to do. I'm going to type in a link so that you can go to this folder that I've got out there. And to get this, you got to be one of our hustlers that shows up for these calls. All right? So here's the deal. I am going to type in the answer into the description box. All right? And you can get that link right there. So I'm just going to save. And if you refresh your screen, you should be able to see the link that will take you to the folder. Okay, now if you can't see it, links may be blocked on your intranet, but you can definitely get this information from the edit, or I should say the description box, which I have just edited. So click on that PM Hustlers link. It should open up a drive, and in that drive, feel free to download and use whatever is there. I put out some free stuff for people who come to these calls. Nothing new in there this week. So if you've been on this call before, it's going to be stuff that you might have already downloaded. All right? Very good. All right. You would have to refresh. You would have to hit an F5 and then look down below. You see a link in the description of the meeting. Alejandro says it works. And yeah, you're going to have to refresh and go there because you won't see it without refreshing for those who are on the meeting. All right? So thank you very much. So moving ahead here. Very good. Moving ahead. On the group, when you join the group, and please, to those folks who find no value in this, hop off the call. We don't need you here. If you don't find value in it, right, if you feel that this is a bunch of rubbish, why do you show up? If the sound of my voice irritates you, you probably shouldn't be on this call, right? So if you're one of those haters, you know, we got some lame people hating on these videos that are trying to help people. I just laugh at you because you shouldn't even be here. You're wasting your time. Are you on the clock? Is hating your job? You might want to take a dive in the deep end. Don't show up. And those of you who actually find value from these, hit the like button. I want you to send a strong message to these haters that try to sabotage the videos, send in spam and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. You ought to be ashamed. It's a professional group. And there's no reason for me to be here this morning other than I want to help people. So if you are hating on these videos, shame on you. I feel sorry for you. And if you fail the exam, that's not the right approach. The right approach is to come and learn and not to be hating on videos. So if you're finding value, folks, send a message to these haters that they're doing nothing but wasting their time. And if they're on the clock, well, you might want to tell your boss, find another channel to spam and send all these dumb text messages in the middle of the conference. The shame is on you. But those of you who are here to learn, thank you for coming. I just had to address that. I'm sorry, I just had to address that because we get all sorts of weird haters and people sending crazy spam and links. So thank you very much. Carlos says nothing but the pros here. That's it. I know we got a lot of dedicated pros. Last week was one of the worst weeks ever. We had a lot of spammers, lots of people chatting in all sorts of crazy links. I'm like, why are you doing this? We got professionals here. But anyway, you kind of get my message. More PMP exam bosses, pure gold. This is from one of my top PMP champs. Mike has been on the journey with us for quite a while. And here's what he says about the knowledge dump. So a huge shout out to Mike. He says, during the 50-minute pre-test tutorial, you have plenty of time to do a knowledge dump. And some people say, what? What on earth is he talking about? Because in a lot of prometric test centers, you are actually still allowed to do your knowledge dump. Did you know that? You probably are shocked. It really depends on which test center you go to. But I've heard from lots of students, oh, I was allowed to do my knowledge dump. Some people aren't, but he was. Anyway, he says, I did not write the ITTOs and processes. On the test, there were at least 3 of 4 questions on calculating the critical path. Maybe pre-drawing activity nodes during knowledge dump would have saved more time. So what he means is drawing out nodes so that when it comes time to do the actual exam and you find a network diagram question, you already have the nodes drawn out. For each question, of course, you would add the arrows to show dependencies and durations. This may help with saving a little time. I never thought of that. Never thought of that. All right, I also recommend writing out the change life cycle, a term coined by Phil. That's in one of our Savage videos. I think I drew that out a couple of meetings ago. Says, I took a couple of deep breaths, said a couple of words of self-encouragement, hit the start button. During the exam, I was unsure on a couple of questions at the beginning. I used the strikeout feature to eliminate bogus answers and used the highlighter on keywords that were clues to where I was in the process. That is really, hey, take a look for the text file in the folder that I shared with you guys just now, because we have examples of exactly what he's talking about, right? That interface, how to navigate the interface, all of that stuff. You might want to check the text files in the folder. He says, I was sure on a couple of questions at the beginning, I used a strikeout feature to eliminate bogus answers and the highlighter on keywords that were clues to where I was in the process. This is really important. I marked these questions and returned to them later. 10 minutes into the exam, I decided to answer the last 50 questions. I love the unconventional approach. I love it, I love it. I love the unconventional approach. 10 minutes into the exam, he went to answer the last 50 questions. I answered questions 150 to 200, then 50 to 100. Hey folks, learn from what he's talking about, because this is exactly what I did on my exam. I went to the back after I got to question 20, found them so hard, but from question 200 backwards, it was a bit refreshing. I marked and skipped the long, wordy, or math questions. I wanted the opportunity to spend more time covering more questions as quickly as possible. After answering question 100, I went to the review screen and selected incomplete. This allowed me to go through and answer the remaining questions. Hey, Mike, are you by any chance on, or are you enjoying your beauty sleep? I'm going to have to go through the chats because I thought Mike was going to join us. Hey, if Mike sent you, if you're in Mike's group, Mike's Facebook group, and you're here, I want to give you a shout out. So just chat in and let me know, all right? All right. So I can see we've got some spammers. So yeah, these are the mischief makers I was talking about. So I'm just going to have to put a few people in timeout. And I'm probably going to have to hide you. All right. So Alex, thank you. Alex says you're not allowed to do it anymore. These are the mischief makers I was talking about. I always miss the chats because I know all the fun is in the chats, you see. Ken says, I want to be a pro. Smiley face. Tippy Toe says, the haters are probably people charging insane prices for the boot camp and attendees steadily failing the exam. CS says they're mad at the hustle, Phil. Oh dear. Amjad says, you know what? I've been studying for PMP for the past 4 years. Wow. I found Phil the best trainer. Thank you, Amjad. I did not pay Amjad for that comment, by the way. Oh dear. Laughing ROLF emoji from Alex. That's funny. Or ROFL. Um, if we contact the test center, will they let us know if we can do knowledge dump beforehand? Creighton, that's a good question. Honestly, my conspiracy theorist gremlin that sits here sometimes says, don't ask them because that will make them change their mind even before you get there. So Creighton, the answer is I'm not sure what you should do, to be honest. Uh, thank you, VJ. Thank you, Tippy Toes. You guys are too kind. So who was the mischief maker? Gelves. Who is Gelves? I can't find that person. I'm trying to look for that person so I can. Oh, yes, I've hidden the person now. Okay. Nirush. So Nirush, you want to look in the meeting description. If you do an F5, you're going to see that tiny URL that will take you to where I've got a bunch load of gold and I've got a text file. Judy, welcome. I've got some stuff where we have these links to examples, all right? Nee, thank you for joining. So you're looking for the 6th edition. Stay tuned. So next week, before Friday next week, we're going to have one of our 6th edition demos. So if you're on for the 6th edition, send an email to learningadmin@praizion.com, okay? Learningadmin@praizion.com. Good. Thank you, Creighton. Okay, so let's go back to what Mike was saying. So we kind of generated some discussion about whether you should ask them at the Prometric Test Center. My conspiracy gremlin says they might get an idea not to let you, Phil. So, don't know. So let's see, number 7, there were a ton of questions on change requests. It helps to look at Phil's change lifecycle that I wrote during my knowledge dump to keep you focused on PMBOK sequence of change process. I answered these questions quickly and I was happy to see them. If you see any offensive chats, I apologize up front. Just let me know who the culprit is and I'll make sure I silence those individuals from disturbing your focus. All right, there could be numerous questions on SPI and CPI. Be sure to read the questions carefully. The answers are written to see if you pay attention to the details in how the question is written and understand SPI, CPI, and all that stuff. Numerous questions about the stakeholder power grid. Be sure to look for synonyms of the terms you're not accustomed to seeing in the PMBOK guide. Know how to interact with them. Basic quality tools, kind of talked about that earlier. Most are situational questions, very few calculation questions. Channels of communication can be vague. I assume the project manager needed to be added to total number communicating unless stated otherwise. Closing questions, sometimes the only way you knew you were in a procurement situation is because of the use of the word contract. The questions are phrased to see if you're really paying attention. Many of the answer choices are just stating what is currently, that's true. Many of the answer choices are just stating what is currently being done in the question. Be sure to see the one word or phrase that changes how you would answer the question. That is so true. Midway through the exam, I took about a 10-minute bio break. I felt refreshed upon returning. The biggest difference from the first time I took the exam, on my first attempt, I went 1 to 200. Hey, this is a big one. This is big. Plowed through the exam, 1 to 200. No skipping, no break. I rushed through the exam to answer all the questions with the idea I would have time to review the questions at the end. I ended up rushing during my review of the questions, which added no value, and I probably changed some right answers. On my second attempt, I skipped around, slowed my pace, took a break. Towards the end, I rushed a little, which was not necessary. I would recommend to having a time strategy and try to pace yourself without rushing through. It is important to develop a test strategy that works for you. Great lessons, great lessons from Mike. And Mike was, he just went at it like a bulldog, just mowing down as much information as he could. Mock exams. Taking the mock exams helped me warm up my brain. I took a 25-question mock the morning of the exam. As I drove to the test, I mapped processes and kept my mind in test mode. So there are a lot of lessons to be learned from Mike, and comparing that to what Heather shared. You know, you never know where the PMI are going to come from on the exam. You never know. Sikanda, welcome, welcome. Amjid says, can you share a brain dump that we can write every day to practice? Absolutely. So if you haven't taken a look at my brain dump video on YouTube, I'm going to type in a link for you so that you can watch that video and give you an idea of what to practice as a daily ritual. All right, so hopefully YouTube will let me chat this in. It's a link to a YouTube video, so that shouldn't cause any harm. Namdio says, any clues as to when to include PM? Yeah. So if you get a question that says, on a project there are X number of stakeholders, you probably just have to go with the PM being in that number. But if you get the question, there is a PM with a team of XYZ, then you have to add the PM because the PM isn't included. So where it says, on a project there are 25 stakeholders and a project manager. Watch this. On a project there are 25 stakeholders and a project manager. How many channels of communication are there among the stakeholders? You see that? In that instance, you cannot add the PM because they're looking specifically at the stakeholders' channels of communication without the PM. So just within the stakeholders. Excuse me. Get some water. So what they're trying to do is trick you based on subtleties, but you have to hone in on those subtleties. So again, you are a project manager on a project. You have 10 people reporting to you. How many channels of communication are there between you and the team? Versus there are 11 stakeholders on a project. How many channels of communication are there among them? PM's already in there. Or no need to add a PM. They're only asking about the stakeholders mentioned in the question. Okay. Now they could throw you off by saying you're a project manager on a project. You have 3 stakeholders in France, 2 in Germany, 1 in this place. Some of the stakeholders that work in this place also work in another place. You're going to have to keep your eye on how they're moving the information around. And finally, how many channels of communication are there between all the people on the project? Then you know you need to add everybody in. All right. So it could be very tricky. We have some of these on our mock exams, so I'm sure if you've taken our mocks. Namdio, I see you've been taking our mocks. So remind me, have you killed any of the mocks, Namdio? I can't remember. I think you have. Remind me. Nirosh says, exam set to March 24th. Wake up and go to sleep with PMP. So Kevin, you were on the call earlier, you're trying to do the CAPM. I would advise that you also look for the 40 days videos. I think someone mentioned those to you. If you don't have them, just chat in and someone will send you the link to 40 days to PMP and CAPM exam success. Carlos says they kill you because they put both. Yeah, they do, Carlos, that's true. They put both answers. And you're going to have to distinguish between when do I use the one that has PM, when do I use the one without. It's subtle. But if you take enough mock exams, we've probably maxed out the trickery. It's either you say, on a project with this number of stakeholders, or you say, you are the project manager of a project, you have this number of stakeholders. Then, number of stakeholders plus PM. I hope that helps. All right, so Mike Hamilton, did anyone come from Mike's group? Because Mike told a bunch of folks about this study group. Oh, great, Kevin, very good. Okay, so let's move on here. We've got quite a lot to cover. Scheduling tool. Apart from Microsoft, Project, type in one scheduling tool you know. Oh, here they come again. Yep. What's this? What's this big black dude doing? Oh dear, what a bunch of clowns. Where does YouTube get these characters? My goodness. Oh my goodness, where on earth does YouTube fish out these? I don't even know what to call them. All right, base camp, says Judy. Nirosh says, what's the last date for PMP? 25th of March. Carlos says, here we go, another one. Oh dear. Alejandro says Primavera. Yep, Primavera is definitely a good one. Microsoft projects. Yeah, outside of MS Project, Primavera, very good. So scheduling tool, the tool and technique of develop schedule and control schedule. Moving on. Your friendly neighborhood PMBOK guide says organizational process assets are the plans, processes, policies, procedures, and knowledge bases specific to and used by the performing organization. Which of the following usually do not get updated in organizational process assets during the control procurement process? Is it the project management plan? Is it correspondence? Is it payment schedules and requests? Or is it sellers' performance evaluations? I'm going to let you guys think a little bit. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Amid. Amjad, I beg your pardon. Yes, Yinka, that is the very last day that you can take the PMP exam based on the 5th. That is correct. Oh dear. You got a lot of clowns on the internet. Okay. Come on, folks. Type in the answer. Whack in the answer. Thank you. Come on. Don't open the PMBOK guide, just jump and go for one. Thank you, Ducey Poppy. Thank you, Creighton, Adebola. Thank you, Olivia, Francis, and Nan. Thank you very much. Bruce says that and the PM. Ravi types in D. All right. I want to show you something. Something in the PMBOK guide that may or may not change your mind. Why don't we go into the mothership? Okay. So I'm going to go to chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 1. Chapter 1. Oh, hang on. Not chapter 1. This is chapter 4. Let's go to close project or phase for a second, folks. Close project or phase. All right. Let's go to page 103, section 4.6.3.2, Organizational Process Assets Updates. All right, take a look. It says, the organizational process assets that are updated as a result of the close project or phase process include, but are not limited to, turn the page over, project files. Listen carefully. Documentation resulting from the project's activities. For example, project management plan. What? The project management plan is listed under OPAs? Oh my goodness. Did you know that the project management plan was an OPA? Well, now you know. So it says, for example, project management plan, scope, cost, schedule, and project calendars, risk registers and other registers, change management documentation, planned risk response actions, and risk impact. Oh, beg your pardon, there's a question. Sorry, I'm blocking your view. You see it now, Judy? There you go. All right. So that makes me begin to wonder, oh, okay, project management plan is an OPA. All right. Then it goes further to say, project or phase closure documents consisting of formal documentation that indicates completion of the project or phase and the transfer of the completed project or phase deliverables to others, goes on and on. Then it talks about historical information and lessons learned are transferred to the lessons learned knowledge base, on and on. I'm on page 104, 5th edition, 104. All right. So now you know that the project management plan is an OPA. Does it in any way change your mind? Maybe yes, maybe no. Let me give you additional clarity. Hold on. We're going to open up our book to chapter 12. Chapter 12. We're going to go to control procurement, and we're going to go to the mothership and open up the OPAs on page 385. This will tell us which OPAs are updated, all right? It says, elements of the OPAs that may be updated include, but are not limited to, let's look at the big bullets. Correspondence, payment schedules and requests, seller performance evaluations. Taking a look at page 386, comparing that to the question, which of the following usually do not get updated, even though it says do not, trying to make you think of many things. The answer, as we can see, is going to be not D, not C, and not B. And as many of you guessed right off the bat, it's A, but not for the reason that many of you were thinking. Some folks might have been thinking, oh no, project management plan is not an OPA. It is an OPA. It's just not updated in this process. So these are some of the subtleties that you need to look out for, okay? For example, if it said, which of these is updated as part of closed project or phase as an OPA? See? So, I hope that helps you. We talked about 7 basic quality tools. Children can control hunger pangs some Fridays. Goofy mnemonic for you to remember: cause and effect diagram, check sheet, control chart, histogram, Pareto, scatter diagram, and flow chart. Now, while we take a look at that, I am going to open up a chart to give you a few quizzes, just to make sure we truly understand this stuff to the degree that the exam may require. So on the exam, you're going to have questions that test you on all of these, or some of these, I should say. When do I use cause and effect diagram versus a check sheet? Or when do I use a histogram versus a Pareto? When do I use a scatter diagram versus a flow chart? Stuff like that. Very important. So, food for thought, okay? Just a few things to think about. Which tools would you use to plan steps to reach a goal? Tools that you would use to plan steps to reach a goal in quality. You got a quality goal, quality initiative. Which tool would you use? Steps to reach a goal. Or should I say, which quality management tool, and it's not one of the 7 basics, might be, may not be, but which one of the quality tools do you use to plan steps to reach a goal? Any takers on that one? Thank you, Bruce. You're most welcome. Namdio typed in the correct answer, PDPC. You gotta be in the flow of PMI's dogma to know it's PDPC. If PDPC doesn't jump into your head, take a look at the definition of PDPC, right? Let's go to the second one. Identify causes of a defect in order of frequency. In order of frequency, which one is that? Any ideas, anyone? So I'm just going to try and scribble answers here. May not be as big. Oops, excuse me, 1 second. Just wanted to write down PDPC. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. PDPC. That first one is PDPC. Second one, identify causes of a defect in order of frequency. Pareto, very good. Pareto is the second one. And I didn't bring my stylus. I apologize for my terrible writing. Pareto is number 2. Number 3, investigate or show relationship between 2 variables. Which tool do you use to show relationship between 2 variables? Thank you, David, and welcome to the show. Thank you, Puneet. Thank you, Ajanthini. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Rohini. Everyone is mowing down this one. You're absolutely correct. Scatter. Scatter. Okay, so number 3, scatter. I'm going to get rid of my horrendous writing on this one. Number 3 is scatter. All right. Number 4, investigate to see if a process is out of control. Thank you, Amjid. Amjid, quick on the draw here. Arshad, thank you for joining today. It is control chart. Thank you, everyone chatting in. Thank you, Francis. Marwan, good to see you. Thank you for chatting that in. So you're all correct. Control chart is number 4. Control chart. Number 5, see the frequency distribution of certain measurements in a job batch. See the frequency distribution. What do you use for frequency distribution? Alejandro, thank you. Francis, everyone else chatting in, thank you guys. The answer to that is the histogram. The histogram. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Plan the shortest time to deliver a part. Plan the shortest time to deliver a part. I expect multiple ideas about that one. What do you think? Plan the shortest time to deliver a part. The key word being the word time. What do you think? Time. Time, time, time. I expected to see that one, Amjid. Thank you. Time, time, time. It's a giveaway. Which time tool is talked about in quality? I'm going to show you the page. Critical path method. Okay, what do you use to drive the critical path method? What is in the background while you're doing the critical path? What is it? What is it called? What is a tool and technique of quality, or a sub-tool and technique of quality, that alludes to time management. It's on page 246 of the 5th edition. 246 of the 5th edition. Amjid, you're close. Yes. Which one? I want to make sure you guys are looking at the mothership. Page 246. Thank you, Stosh. It is called formally Activity Network Diagrams. Previously known as arrow diagrams, they include both the AOA and AON. You might be delighted to know that this particular reference is going away in the 6th edition. Perhaps you don't even care. Activity network diagrams are used with project scheduling methodologies such as program evaluation and review technique, PERT, critical path method, and precedence diagramming method. So the answer to that one, plan the shortest time to deliver a part, you could argue that flowcharts, but I was looking for arrow, diagramming method, or activity on node. So this is activity network diagrams. Okay. Next one, show the causes of problems that lead to other causes and problems. Show the causes of a problem that lead to other causes and problems. Cause and effect, Ishikawa, Ishikawa, Ishikawa. Let me put it this way. In which diagram or which technique do we find the cause of a problem that leads to an effect that leads to another cause and another effect and another cause and another effect and another cause and another effect? Which one is it? Does the fishbone do that? Does the fishbone do that 50 times? It's not the fishbone. It's not the flowchart. Which one is it? Because the student didn't sleep, they got to the exam venue late. Because they got to the exam venue late, they were nervous. Because they were nervous, they couldn't remember the equations. Because they couldn't remember the equations, they got all the questions on the exam wrong with formulas. Because they got all the formula questions wrong, their score was impacted. Because majority of this score was in monitoring and controlling and planning, they didn't do well on the exam. Which chart or tool shows you that? Thank you, Sachigans and Tippy Toes. And Uma, thank you for chatting that in. Thank you, Carlos. You guys, now you got the picture. Absolutely. So I'm talking about the interrelationship digraph. And that is exactly what it does. It goes, it continues from where your fishbone ends. Now, I know some fishbones could be very elaborate, but they're not an absolute map like the interrelationship digraph. Let's read page 245. The key that I gave you was the number 50, right? It says on page 245, an adaptation of relationship diagrams. The interrelationship diagraph provide a process for creative problem solving in moderately complex scenarios that possess intertwined logical relationships for up to 50 relevant items. The interrelationship diagraph may be developed from data generated in other tools such as, watch this, the affinity diagram, which someone mentioned, the tree diagram, which someone also mentioned, or the fishbone diagram, which lots of people chatted in. So this takes it a little bit further, and analyzes cause and effect webs. I call it a cause and effect web. All right. Robert, good to see you. Thank you for chatting in. Wow, you're working today, Saturday. Doff my hat to you. Hope you get some energy to go savage at the end of the day. Can always catch up on this. So the answer to that one, interrelationship digraph. All right, let's move on. So interrelationship digraph. All right, next one. Group problems found in a process by categories. Not diagrams, exactly. Not diagrams. They call relational or relationship diagrams, but digraph. D-I, no A. Digraph. D-I-G-R-A-P-H. Group problems found in a process by categories. Using post-it notes or something else. Thank you. Affinity diagrams is that one. Illustrate forces for or against an idea. Forces for or against an idea. What is that? Forces for or against an idea. Thank you, Sachigans and Puneet and Umar. Thank you. Achintia, you're so right. Amjad, thank you. It is force field analysis. So if you haven't heard of force field analysis, go look it up. Forces for or against an idea. If the opposing forces are more than the forces for, that tells you you probably need to find more forces for, okay, because you are outnumbered. So force field analysis is forces for or against an idea. This one is pretty long, so I'm going to ask you one question from this. What is the metric of performance for Six Sigma? What is the metric for performance? And that's an open question. You could type in anything you like. Metric of performance. This has all sorts of colorful answers on the exam, that is. We get all sorts of ridiculous answers. Amjad, that is close. 99. Think everyone. Thank you, Achintia. That is exactly what I was looking for. If you wanted to go OCD on it, you could say 99.999666666. And Namdio, thank you. That is also a very correct metric. 3.4 defect. Oh, think of Milli Vanilli, and not Billy as in Bill Gates. 3.4 defects per million. You got to think of the milli when it comes to this. We're dealing with a million opportunities. 3.4 defects per million. Million opportunities. All right, so 99.9997% accurate. 99.9997. All right. You might want to take a look at, there's a table. Let me see if I can show you that table. There's a table that shows you all of these sigmas. All right. So if you look at Six Sigma, 3.4 defects per million opportunities. Let me make that bigger, just in case you need to see it. So that's Six Sigma, 3.4 defects per million opportunities. And in terms of the percentage yield, 99.9997%. Not to be confused with 99.977%. All right, and this table is out there on the web. You can find this very easily. You'll probably find this in Wikipedia. So Six Sigma, know the sigmas. If nothing else, kind of go through them one day before your exam and know for sure what Six Sigma is, okay? Very important. Lanita, thank you for joining. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. So we're just taking a look at a few problems on the quality tools, all right? So rule of 7, know it. Out of control, know it. All of that stuff, know it. Let me see if I've got an image I can share to jog your memories. Do I have an image here? All right, let me move on to this image. Rule of 7, 7 non-random data points grouped together on one side of the mean, but they are consecutive. Keyword is 7 non-random consecutive data points bunched together on one side of the mean. Rule of 7. Now, this rule of 7 is also an assignable cause. We need to assign a cause to why this happened and why that happened. Right here, we can see that this is out of control, far outside the UCL, far outside the LCL. We also call this an assignable cause. Some people say outliers. On the exam, I really don't expect any test beyond what is on this chart. Assignable cause, out of control, rule of 7. And they might get a little bit creative on some of the questions, but I suspect there might be pre-test questions hiding from these areas. But that's just my suspicion. I might be wrong, but anyway. So just take a quick look at some of these things we mentioned. Force field analysis, forces against an idea, forces for an idea. Also, we talked about the affinity diagram, so grouping ideas. We could use this in a bunch of processes. And also the PDPC chart, which we were a little bit clueless about. That's your PDPC chart. Trying to get to a goal of 0 defects, and there are the steps to get to the goal. And then we also talked about the interrelationship diagram. So late drivers cause limited warehouse space, difficulty level loading causes this. Shows you the web of interactivity between cause and effect. Late customer orders cause late drivers. Poor scheduling causes late drivers. Late drivers cause limited warehouse space, also caused by, so the whole web. This shows you that. What else? So let's go back to a bunch of questions and make sure we've maxed those out. Last but not least, using an established organization's level of performance as a basis for measuring your performance. Which one is that? Yes, Achintia. 7 sigma is also there. So you might want to look that up. Who knows? Kick the tires, make sure you got yourself covered. 7 sigma. All right. I don't think that's fair game, but you never know. So what's the answer to that one? Benchmarking. Fantastic. So folks, these are the answers. Oh, did I miss something? I was meant to be showing you the answers. Oh, I think I jumped ahead, too far ahead. Hold on. Nope, jumped too far ahead. Those are not the questions. Nope. Where were we? Hang on a second. Oh, here we go. All right. I just wanted to show you the answers on the final slide. So PDPC, Pareto, scatter, control chart, histogram, network diagrams, interrelationship, digraph is the correct word. Pareto is the best choice. Actually, affinity is the best choice. You could also say Pareto. So group problems found in a process by categories. Affinity, Pareto could also be a choice if there. Force field we talked about. Six Sigma we talked about. Okay. So like I said, for a lot of these, you could get multiple answers. Multiple answers for the same thing. We talked about scatter. Your scatter diagram, it could show you a relationship that way or an inverse relationship. All right. So let's go back to where we were before we made this little diversion to talk about the quality tools. Back onto the 7 basic quality tools. I hope that helped you because I just didn't want to show you a bunch of names and not give you some mental exercise about these. All right? Moving on here. Oh, where is it used? 7 basic quality tools is a tool and technique of what? So to get the answer to that, figure 8-1 on page 230 is where you want to be. Awesome. Thank you, Yinka. I'm glad to hear that. The 7 basic quality tools, we see this mentioned exclusively in 2 processes, but that is not to say that we cannot use this throughout quality, but we see it explicit in 8.1, plan quality management, and 8.3, control quality. And then in 8.2, we have quality management and control tools. So let's take a trip down to quality management and control tools really quick. Really quick. So this is where we mention affinity diagrams, process decision program charts, and so on, and it says the perform quality assurance process uses the tools and techniques of the plan quality management and control quality processes. So what does that tell you? It's implied that the 7 basic quality tools are definitely used in perform quality assurance, along with all these other ones, affinity diagrams and so on. All right? Those of you who are 6th edition folks, we will no longer have quality assurance or perform quality assurance in the 6th edition. That name is going to change. I'll tell you about that later. Stakeholder analysis, where do we use this? It's a tool and technique used in what? Chat into me. Stakeholder analysis. Thank you all very much. Everyone's typing in identify stakeholders. Thank you very much. That is exactly what it is. Identify stakeholders. Now, in planned stakeholder engagement, we use something that we often mix up with this, but it is not this. All right, so we talk about analytical techniques, but in this one, in identify stakeholders, this is where we actually use stakeholder analysis. All right? Statistical sampling, tool and technique of what? Statistical sampling. Where do you find that being spoken about? Is that explicitly mentioned somewhere? Is it explicit? Figure 8-1 has the answer. 8-1. So under 8.3, under the tools and techniques, statistical sampling is going to help you where you got a boatload of stuff to inspect, isn't it? And you choose part of the population of interest at random for inspection. And this is also talked about in 8.1.2.6. So let's go there. 8.1.2.6. So I'm just going to read it for you. So it's in planning as well. It says statistical sampling involves choosing part of a population of interest for inspection. For example, selecting 10 engineering drawings at random from a list of 75. Sample frequency and sizes should be determined during the plan quality management process. And that is exactly why we see it in planning, where we determine the sample size, and in controlling, where we actually do the sample itself. I've had a few questions from students that say, Phil, but why do we see this in planning? It's being included in plan only makes you sensitive to how you're going to use the tool, and then when you see it in controlling, that is when you are using the tool. Strategies for negative risks or threats. Chat into me. All the 4 strategies. Type it all at once on a line. All of the strategies. I want to know all of the strategies. Thank you, Rohini, for typing in where we use it. So we use this in plan risk responses. That's right. Good. You preempted my question. All right. So type in all 4. What are the 4 strategies for negative risks or threats? Negative risks or threats. Type them in. All on one line. Avoid, mitigate, accept, transfer. Thank you, Rohini. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Kaushik. Good to see you this morning. Thank you, everyone. Did you get all 4? Or did any evade you? If they evaded you, just take a look at what some other folks chatted in. It's going to ring that bell. It's going to ring that bell. You know, these groups are just to help you remember stuff, recall stuff, all right? Thank you, Ken. Very good. So the strategies are used, as Rohini typed in, plan risk responses, we know that. But what about taking it a step further? What about the strategies for positive risks or opportunities? Type in. All 4. All 4. Strategies for positive risks or opportunities. I'm going to give you a few quizzes on this one as well. So I hope you've kicked the tires prior to this. I'm going to give you a fun quiz to play with. All right. Did I get all 4? Share, exploit, accept, enhance. Very good. Thank you, everyone who chatted in. Thank you, Ms. Ma'am. Appreciate that. Thank you, David. Wasim, welcome to the show. Thank you very much. Some of you folks have been on, but I just didn't notice your chat, so bear with me. All right, risk strategies. I'm just going to ask you very loosely some of these strategies and what you think. You decide to remove some of the identified work from the project scope. Which strategy is that? Umair has typed in avoid. What do you guys think? Help his comment have some company. Everyone's typing in avoid. Avoid. Marwan, thank you very much. You are correct. It's the avoidance strategy. Good. Very good. All right. Next one. Watch this. Watch it carefully, folks. I'm giving you like a trigger, warning sign. Hey, don't just jump in there. You send Jack to scope out the project location and gather data to be used to deal with a risk. What do you think this is? I always get very creative answers on this. I remember my friends at NASA had very creative answers on that one. We had a whole spectrum. So you send Jack to scope out the project and gather data to be used to deal with a risk. Ravi says, understand risk. Rohini says, accept. David says, accept. None of you is wrong. You're all correct. Amjad says, may be to insurance company or third party. You're right, could be. Wasim says, accept. Stosh says, exploit. Very well could be. So why do I show you this question? To expand your imagination and to go through a bunch of scenarios. To deal with the risk, how? Could it be positive? Is it negative? All right, so let me frame the question in this way. You send Jack to scope out the project location and gather data to be used to deal with a risk. Can I add a sentence that will change this question? I wish I could, but I don't think PowerPoint's going to let me do that. So let me do it off the fly. Okay, so on the fly rather. So you send Jack to scope out the project location and gather data to be used to deal with a risk if it occurs. If it occurs. To deal with a risk if it occurs. What strategy is that? If I put the sentence or the phrase, if it occurs at the end, what does that become? If it occurs. You send Jack to scope out the project location and gather data to be used to deal with a risk if it occurs. If it occurs, then do XYZ. What does that make it? Okay. I'm finding some gaps, and that's good. That's good. So it's either going to be avoid, transfer, mitigate, or accept. So if you're gathering data to be used to deal with a risk, if it occurs, it means that you're not going to do anything about it. Right? You're not going to do anything about it. If it happens, then we're going to do this. But your strategy is not, we're going to do this to make sure it does not occur. We're going to do this to make sure it does not occur in this measure. You see? There's a difference. So when it comes to these strategies, folks, if you want to mow down a bunch of risk questions on the exam, you have to get these concepts into your head. All right? So this one, what I just described, is clearly not mitigate, because mitigate is a reduction of the probability and or impact. So if I'm dealing with the probability and the impact, it has to be before, right? To reduce the probability, that's mitigation. So that would not be mitigate, because I added the word if it occurs. So if it occurs alludes to acceptance. So I know that I have not put if it occurs, and I did that deliberately so you can expand your mind. But just know that if the question says to be used to deal with a risk if it occurs, that's accept. Okay? That is not mitigate. Now at this point, what it is now, it could be mitigate. Because if you're going to get that data to deal with the probability and impact of a risk before it occurs, then it is. It could be mitigate, all right? But if it's after the fact, then it's accept. So it's a very, very open-ended one. So the answer to this could be mitigation or even something else, except if you deal with the risk after it occurs. These little subtleties are big game changers on your exam. They're huge. Very, very huge, okay? Just beware of that. Next one, Dean is a security risk. You have decided to remove him from the project. What's that? Okay, thank you very much. Avoid, avoid, avoid. Yep, you've removed him. You've cut off the risk. You've taken out the bad part, and that can't happen again. Avoid. Very good. Next one. Watch this carefully. Watch it carefully. This is another one of those tricky questions. You have a discussion with your boss that you may need to request additional budget if a risk occurs. He grunts under his breath. What strategy is this? You have a discussion with your boss that you may need to request additional budget if a risk occurs. If a risk occurs. If a risk occurs, then I will need this money. If it doesn't occur, then I won't need the money. If it occurs. If it occurs. Okay, so let's think. Watch this. You have a discussion with your boss that you would not need any money if the risk does not occur. If this doesn't happen, then I won't need any money. If it does, then I'm going to need the money. If it does happen, I am going to have been watching the risk, and then it happens, but I didn't do anything all along. I was just watching it, and then it happened, and then I asked for the money. What strategy is that? Thank you, Olivia, and L. Cook, and Tippy Toes, Rohini, a number of folks chatted that in. You have to watch the subtleties. So I've found this is an area that we have a lot of improvement options, okay? So if you're having a discussion with someone and saying, well, if this happens, I'm going to need more money, I'm going to need some money, you're saying, I'm not going to do anything about it. If it happens, then I'm going to need some money. That's the conclusion you draw. But if it said you have a discussion that you may or that you need additional budget to deal with a risk or to deal with the probability or impact of a risk, that is mitigate. Right now, this is not mitigate. Because you're saying, oh, I may, you're not even saying I will need. You're saying, I may need some money if that thing happens. You've accepted it. You're saying, if it happens, then I'll deal with it. That's accept. That is what makes the exam very tricky when it comes to these. If it happens, I need money. If it doesn't happen, I don't need money. Okay? Versus, I need money because I want to carry out a mitigation approach. You carry out mitigation before the risk happens, not after. After the fact is not mitigate. After the fact could be looked at as a contingent response strategy. And that is why accept is tied to contingent response strategies, okay? This is very tricky and it's very important as well, all right? So the answer is acceptance. If your boss agrees, then it is active acceptance. So going to another degree of understanding, there's a difference between, oh, I accept versus I actively accept. Passive acceptance is doing nothing. So he grunts under his breath. Well, we don't know if he's going to give you the money. If he gives you the money, then it's active. If he doesn't give you the money, he says, I'm not giving you anything, then that's passive. All right? We have another little punk, a little drag of the YouTube society. So we're going to hide this individual. I feel so sorry for these no good individuals. You definitely need help. So anyway, this stuff is on the exam and it's tricky. Oops, I almost showed you the answer to the next one. Drake, our friend, oh dear, maybe he's looking for that cell phone of his. Drake needs to be trained to function on the project. I've got nothing but love for Drake, by the way. It's just that a lot of people find it so comical seeing Drake here. All right, Drake needs to be trained to function on the project. You decide to send him for CAP-M training. What strategy is that? What strategy is this? I'm getting a lot of the right answers. So this is a negative risk, right? We need to take care of it. He needs to be trained because if we don't train him, he can't function on the project, okay? That is not a positive thing, that's negative. Now the question is, if you send him for training, are you transferring the ownership of that risk to someone else? No, you're sending him for training. He gets trained. Whether he gets trained good or bad, you still own the risk. You send him for training. You didn't transfer the risk to a third party to say, okay, you take care of the task that Drake is handling. That's not what you did. So in this case, you guys who typed in mitigate, you are correct. That is a mitigation strategy. This stuff is very subtle, folks, very, very subtle. So you're not transferring the risk. Yeah, go for training, but that's not transfer. Transfer would be call company X and ask them to work on what Drake is meant to be working on. That's transferring the ownership. But in this case, you're mitigating. Sending him for training betters his chances of success and minimizes the chance of failure. All right? Next one. You ask your customer to be solely responsible for reviewing part of the project work. You ask your customer to be solely responsible Thank you, Tippy Toes and Arshad and Ms. Ma'am. Seems like everyone is in the same vein on that one. That is transfer. Very, very good. So I hope this helps you. You know, I wish I could give you more examples of this stuff. Let me ask you some off the cuff, okay? You're working on a job site. You see that there's a possibility of fatality, as there have been fatalities in the past year, people falling from heights, tripping over, stuff like that. You decide to erect a perimeter around a very troublesome area. What strategy is that? You erect a perimeter around a troublesome area. What do you think that is? Thank you. Thank you. That's it. Mitigate. All right, let's talk about another one. Same instance on the job site, there is the possibility that people could be injured. And workers' comp from your company is through the roof. Workers' compensation for injuries is very high. You decide to hire a subcontractor to work on all the scaffolding. What strategy is that? You employ a contractor to work on all the scaffolding, and all your field service engineers and techs are only going to be in supervisory mode. For the most part, that is transfer. That is transfer. So you said, we're not going to do the work, we're going to give it to a third party to do. The work has not been cut off from the project, it's still there, so it's not a void. The scope to do the scaffolding is still there, but you've only transferred it. This stuff is very subtle. My advice would be to read it up in some more detail. All right? Let me give you one more. Same instance on the project. You discover a new technology that can be used for scaffolding while you're working on this project. You decide to partner with Company X for them to harvest this opportunity. What strategy is it? Thank you, David. Thank you very much, Puneet. Oh, you guys get this stuff. Good. Just go through it a little bit more and try to observe what exactly it could be. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you very much. It's share. So sharing is when you give some or all of the opportunity to a third party. Exploit will be to put your best resources, your best people to go to the max. But in this case, it's share, which is a little bit different. All right. Don't worry. The more you look at it, the more it's going to stick. The more you look, the more it's going to stick. All right. Let's move away from that. Let's go back. So I took a lot of time out to talk about that. SWOT analysis is the next one. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Where do we use our SWOT analysis? Where are we strong? Where are we weak? Where are there opportunities? And what are the threats, if any? Where's that? Identify risks. Everyone says identify risks. Everybody agree? What page is that in the PMBOK guide? Is there anyone opening up the PMBOK guide? If you're opening up the PMBOK guide, just type in the page. I hope you've got a PMBOK guide on your devices. You know, having a PMBOK guide on your phone. I've got one on my phone, iPad and all that, it helps. That's page 3. They're following. Page 326, and Puneet is looking at the summary on page 319, I believe it is. You're looking at the summary. Yep. Very good. Okay. So that's your SWOT analysis in the identification of risk. TCPI. What does TCPI stand for? What does TCPI stand for? The Cost Performance Index. Thank you. 2 complete performance index. Very good, guys. Okay. I couldn't end this one without giving you another fun TCPI question. Thank you all for chatting in, by the way. Jonathan, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you. All right. So, take a look. Same project. Your original estimate is flawed and you run a new bottom-up ETC. This looks like a repeat question. I think I might have repeated the question, but this is not the exact one I wanted to give you, is it? Let me read. No, it's not. So I'm going to skip this one because you guys are going to get the answer right anyway. So I've already shown you this one. I need to look for the question that I actually meant to give you. So bear with me as I do that. Bear with me. You will most certainly get this one right if I don't get out of this. Oh, come back. Okay. So let me go to the actual question I wanted to give you. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull it up. Okay, I think this is it. So while I'm doing this, you can do an emergency brain dump. Now you know I'm going to ask you an EAC question. We're going to do an emergency brain dump. And voila, here it is. It's coming up, coming up, coming up. All right. You're promoted to be director of your construction PMO. You promise EO and management based on your cost baseline that you would install 10 servers to manage CAD efforts, 10K each in 10 days at a rate of 1 server a day. At the end of 5 days, you've installed 3 servers. At the end of 5 days, you've spent 40K. Based on your current cost performance, what is TCPI? Based on your current cost performance, what is TCPI? Thank you, Stosh, for helping us out with that little. Tippy Toe says it's the same question. Chintia says 1.15. All right. What is the answer, folks? What do you think? Your standard 1 minute, 12 seconds is over. If you're on the PMP exam, you would have chosen an option, would you? Everyone says C. Stosh says it's not the same formula. No problem, Tippy Toes. They're very subtle. Olivia says it's C. All right, folks. Chat into me. Which formula would you use for this? Which formula? Type in the formula you would use for this one. Or the formulas you would use. Which formulas would you use? You got to use more than one formula, folks. Otherwise, you ain't going to get it. Ms. Ma'am typed in the second formula we use. Thank you. Thank you. What is the... Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay. Okay. Everyone's typing in that one particular formula. Okay. Based on your current cost performance, what is TCPI? So when you plug the numbers in, what did you get? If you plugged in BAC minus EV, 70 over BAC minus AC, that would have been 70 over what? 70 over 60? You might have ended up with the wrong answer based on that. So let me change the question to help you out. But remember, it says based on your current cost performance, right? Based on your current cost performance. If you factor that in, they probably want you to go a little step further for your EAC. Because if you factor that in and you calculate your EAC, it will be different. Probably what I'm going to do for this question is take away the 1.15 and leave a 1.1. And then that might dissuade you from choosing C. Maybe I need to firm up that question a little bit more so that you don't go into the blind alley of choosing the first one that jumps out. But anyway, I wanted you to first calculate CPI, exactly what Amjad is saying, yes. Calculate CPI and then the EAC. So if you had done that, you would have arrived at this. Oops, no, not that, not that, not that. That is the wrong explanation. Bear with me. Let me get the right explanation up. That is the previous explanation. Hold on a second, I'll show you. So this is what I would have been looking for, something similar to this. I've been looking for you to do the CPI, right? And then find the EAC from the CPI, plug that in. Okay? So I might need to firm up that question so that I dissuade you from choosing the obvious. Maybe I should have said, management has decided to give you more money, and then that would have changed your thinking. So for the next group, I'll probably do that. But anyway, I was thinking you would follow through to find the EAC, and then, but I understand the question may not afford you that insight. But if you had taken the BAC, put it here, you would have gotten 70 over 60. And is that 1.15? Is 70 over 60 1.15? Because if it is, I can understand how you got there. Is it? Oh, no, well, it's not 1.15. So actually, there's no reason why you should have chosen 1.15 because it's not even an option if you had followed. You get what I'm saying? Even if you had plugged in 100 minus 40 and it was 60, you would still not have gotten to 1.15. So that should have been a pointer to the fact that you were not in the right vein. So it's not a bad question. It's not a bad question. Yeah, 1.1666, which is far away mathematically from 1.15. So anyway, the answer, folks, is 0.75. That should have been a pointer. If you had solved it and you saw that your answer was not there, then you should have gone back to the drawing board to tackle it again. All right, so that's a very good clue as to when you are in the right zone on the exam or not. All right. So let's move on here. Let me give you a question before we go to team building activities. All right, here's a question, another question. Let's shift mental gears here. Shift mental gears. This is a very long question. I hope you can see it. Okay? Ken chats in, so you really need to memorize all the formulas to be ready for the test. You do, Ken, like Heather And Mike Hamilton said, you really don't know where they're going to come from, so you have to be ready. Jonathan says, but you have to use the right EAC formula. That's true. You do. You need to know the right EAC formula. All right. So question, let me read this for you. You're working on a software game modernization project that focuses on tactical troop transport helicopters. When the modification of the game project is complete, this will have features like 2 air mobile squadrons, 1 special operations support squadron, and 1 maritime support helicopter squadron in the game. In a metrics analysis meeting, you and the project team are analyzing the reasons for a large project effort variance. One member indicates that the effort variance is due to the fact that it is taking more time for the new expert to complete their work because they are not up to speed with the proper use of the latest project planning software application. Performing which of the following activities would have helped in preventing this situation? And here are the options. I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to come up with an idea of what the answer is. I'm going to move out of the way and let you think. This is a very, very good one for testing your logic, all right? Just type in the answer, but don't give any clues. If you know what the answer is because you've seen it on a different exam of ours, don't give any clues, but just type in A, B, C, or D. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Okay. Getting a lot of people typing in the answer D and B. Oh, we also have some A's as well. Okay, wow. All across the board. Oh, so Puneet, I just saw your chat about the last question. I'm going to answer that after this. Okay. Just remind me. All right, Ken, thank you for chatting in. All right, so let's take a look. Take a look. Okay. Performing which of the following activities would have helped in preventing this situation? So the problem at hand is what? The problem at hand is not necessarily the variances. We have uncovered what the reason for the variance is. So this is probably not one of the triple constraint problems. This is alluding to the fact that we know what the variance is, so we're not scratching our heads. Oh, is it time? Is it cost? Is it scope? No, we're not doing that. If you look a little bit deeper, you can see the effort variance is due to the fact that it's taking more time. Why is it taking more time? Because they are not up to speed with the proper use of the latest project planning software. They have not gotten that experience, that dexterity. Developing the work breakdown structure, would that have helped them, or would that have helped unearth the fact that they don't have that skill? Probably not, because the work would have been there, okay? So development of the WBS may not necessarily have caught that, okay? It is taking more time for the new expert. So that tells you that this person may have been brought into the project maybe in the middle, but definitely something that you had seen up front. So we can get rid of D. Let's get rid of D. D would not be the option you jump at first. So let's get rid of D. The problem isn't the scope. C, regular identification of risks as part of the plan risk management process. That sounded like a very, very intelligent option until you get to the second part of the sentence and it says, as part of the plan risk management process. Where do we identify risks? We identify risks in what process? You see, you identify risks as part of identify risks, not as part of plan risk management. It's very subtle, very subliminal, but that's a black hole. You do not identify risks in plan risk management. If it had said identification of risks as part of identify risks, then you would have said, oh, that makes sense. But in plan risk management, you're not identifying risks. Regular identification of risks does not even happen in identify risks. Did you know that? Regular identification of risks actually happens in where? Where do we do the regular identification of risks on the project? Anyone? Regular identification of risks. In which process do we regularly identify risks? Project is underway. We're having meetings. Thank you, Namdeo. Thank you, Ken. You guys are mowing that one down. Absolutely. It's in control risks. Thank you, Ajanthini. Very, very good. Page Blue. Thank you. Welcome to the show. So we can get rid of C because it's just wrong, leading you down a blind alley. Let's take a look at B. Better communication methods as part of the planned communications management process. Now this makes me go back to the question and read it again. Performing which of the following activities would have helped in preventing a new expert from not being up to speed? Or from not being up to speed, however I should have said that. Would better communication methods as part of planned communications management have prevented this new expert from not being up to speed? No. I'm going to get rid of B. B is not right. If it was that the expert did not know how to effectively communicate with stakeholders, I would have said B. Okay? So I think I saw a chat I want to address before I hone in. Amjid says, how can project management planning software help to speed up development? So let's read. One member indicates that the effort variance is due to the fact that it's taking more time for the new expert to complete their work because they are not up to speed with the proper use of the latest project planning software application. It could be gleaning things from the application. It could be gleaning data. When you see things like this, Amjid, and it's a very good question because these are the distractors that they put in there. They put stuff in there to make you scratch your head about what is not even relevant. That is not our concern. Bottom line is this new expert is not completing their work because of this problem. How do we get them up to speed with this? The answer is going to be A, regular identification and assessment of team skills. So I'm going to turn to chapter 9 to give you a few things to read. Underdeveloped project team. Very good example of how they lead you on a blind alley. Should I be really honest with you? When I looked at this question, I failed to completely read C. And that is one thing you never want to do. Because if you only partially read an option, you could end up choosing it and it's wrong. I partially read C. It was when I looked at the end, after realizing it was wrong, I saw plan risk management process. It happens to the best of us. I even fail on questions I wrote because when you're in question writing, it's like you're in a zone, you're in a mode. You come out of that mode, you're just a mere mortal and you can get your own question wrong. So what I'm trying to tell you is you have to read each option very, very carefully. All right? So, so that was Amjid's question. Ken says, but you knew his level of experience when he was brought on. It should not be A. So this person coming on board, it says new expert. New expert kind of alludes to the fact that this person is new to the project and may not have been on right from the beginning. So the right thing to have done, of course, is to assess their skills coming in. Okay? And assessing of skills does not just happen in the beginning planning. No. It happens as part of your assessing the requirements. And after you've assessed the requirements, you still continue to do so throughout the project. But let me show you where this is anyway. Let me read this to you really, really quick. All right. So this is on page 273. Develop project team is the process of improving competencies, team member interaction, and overall team environment to enhance project performance. The key benefit of this process is that it results in improved teamwork, enhanced people skills, and competencies. It then goes further to say motivated employees, reduced staff turnover rates, and improved overall project performance. Now let me show you how this hooks into what Ken is alluding to. Let's go to the second input. Second input, very important. All right. So page 275, it says, project staff assignments described in section 9.2.3.1. Team development starts with a list of project team members. Project staff assignment documents identify the people who are on the team. When we know the assignments, we then know what kind of training or team building will fit these people. So based on that, we go a step further into the training option of a tool and technique used here. Under training, it says, training includes all activities designed to enhance the competencies of team members. Training can be formal or informal, and it goes into all that stuff. So the bottom line here, to Ken's point, is let's say this person wasn't even new. Is there any of these that would have been a good option or a better option? No, because you still have to do the process of what have we assigned them to and where do they need to improve? And that stuff, even if it happens on day 1 or day 2, is still part of this process. Develop project team. I think the big thing is not misunderstanding that executing could actually happen on day 1. You could begin to execute. It's just a group. It's just a category. It's not a time ordering of events. Do you get it? You could be executing on day 1. You don't have to wait till day 10 to execute. You know Phil is assigned to the project. Maybe there's pre-assignment. Pre-assignment even happens before the project is authorized in many instances. So there's a lot of executing, like pre-assignment, that happens far before you get to the middle or even a quarter into the project. All right? Carlos says that last line is the whole question, right? Yep. So this last line, performing which of the following activities would have helped in preventing this situation? All right? So the best answer, I know. I love it when we see these type of very subjective questions. I even got the question wrong because I didn't read it properly. I chose C. Just being honest. We're all family. Let's be honest. Phil gets questions wrong. Okay? Phil gets his questions wrong. So the penalty of not reading an option completely or not reading the meaning into, you have to read the right meaning into the option. It was when I looked, I'm like, wow, Syed, one of my question writers, very, very tricky. Very tricky. The consolation is he got certified after me. So the brain cells are still working better than Phil's. Just joking. All right, let's move on. Team building activities. Tucky Tuckman. Tucking into some grub in the grub shop. Mr. Tuckman's ladder. I talked about this last week. You got to know that ladder, folks. I'm just going to tell you the page. 276. Forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. You got to know the definitions, folks. Definitions are key. You got to know the definitions. Very, very important. Very important. Oh, so Namdio says FSNPA. Namdio, do you know that YouTube just held your comment because it looked like it looked like a word one of those friends of ours usually type in. So YouTube had withheld it, but I've shown it to the rest of the group. That's funny. Carlos says tricky. Phil tricked himself. Actually, it was Saeed, one of my question writers, who came up with that slimy question. That's a disgusting question. I like people who write questions that are not straightforward because there's a lot of straightforward mock exams out there on the web. Saeed was one of the people who worked with me on the marathon mock. In fact, he wrote majority of those, along with CAPM on staff, our learning administrator, who does a lot of that stuff. Both of them pretty much did most of that work. So, kudos to them. Does this go on for 4 hours? It typically doesn't go on for more than 2, but if I find that people need to know more, I'm not going to run out of the room and leave people, clueless about a particular thing. Like risks was big today and quality tools, I felt we needed to spend more time. So ideally, it goes on for 3 hours, but I just want to mow down all of this stuff, get it out of the way, finish this for today. Next week, Bernadette, are you still on the call? Is Bernie still on? Bernie, if you're on, let me know, okay? Let's keep mowing these down. All right, so team building activities, you get the picture, forming, norming, storming, all that stuff. You need to know it. We talked about that last week, so let's move on. Technical performance measurement. Actually, technical performance measurement, let's see. I'm not 100% sure I've given you a truthful process on that one. Technical performance, yeah, so that is, as I'm seeing it, I know that is a dubious attribution right there. So let me get rid of that. That should not be there. No. Hang on, bear with me. I want to get rid of that dubious attribution. It is not qualitative. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the display. Technical performance measurement is a tool and technique used in which risk management process? Thank you, Puneet. You're absolutely correct. Less functionality than planned at a milestone is an example given in the PMBOK guide. Let's open up to it. Technical performance measurement. You want to be measuring your technical performance to make sure you're on track. It's one of those subliminal ones that you just hear and you're like, oh, it sounds familiar, I'll skip it. Kind of like schedule model that we were talking about previously. It's one of those you just hear and you skip it. But these are some of the things you want to hone in on. Page 352, it says technical performance measurement compares technical accomplishments during project execution to the schedule of technical achievement. We should have gotten to the point where we could use interface X, but we're not there. What does it mean? It then goes further to say it requires the definition of objective, quantifiable measures of technical performance, which can be used to compare actual results against targets. Such technical performance measures may include wait, transaction times, number of delivered defects, storage capacity, etc. Deviations such as demonstrating more or less functionality than planned at a milestone can help to forecast the degree of success in achieving the project scope. So the bottom line is, where did we say we would be technically at this point? Are we there? No, we're not there. Then we could be in trouble, that type of thing. All right. Moving on, 3-point estimating. Estimate activity durations and estimate cost. On this one, be aware of when you use beta versus when you use triangular. If you don't have an expert who has been there, done that, you have no business using beta. So if you're working on new technology, stuff that has never been done before, use triangular. But if Phil is truly an expert and he has been there, done that on a project, he might be the expert. He might be the 4M in the equation of beta. So just know where you use your 3-point triangular versus 3-point beta. All right. Now that was from last week. Ignore that. Training. We just talked about training, sending people for training to improve on their competencies. And now it's time for another PMP exam bosses pure gold. I told you I was going to show you James's lessons learned. Okay. Sachigan says, quality control measurements in control quality go into QA. No. Oh, I see what you mean. I thought you were talking about technical performance measurements again. So Sachigans, that's a good question. Did I miss a chat, Puneet? Did I miss a chat that you chatted in? Did I cover everyone's questions? I thought there was a question I missed. Oh, yes. So Puneet, yes. So one of Puneet's chats way back was, why did you choose the EAC formula for TCPI and not the BAC formula? So it could be for two reasons. One, you used the BAC formula, none of the options was there. And secondly, it could be because you saw the mention of the cost performance index is going to stay the same. That may be, oh, maybe EAC could be referenced here. Okay, so it's based on a hunch. But that is a tricky one. Yes. So yeah, you could know, hey, BAC ain't working. Sometimes you have to eliminate. BAC ain't working, let me use EAC, as it was on that question, but it was very slight, 1.15 versus 1.16. So, but anyway, I hope that answers the questions. One of the things I want to assure you about is the questions on the PMP exam are very different. Some of the questions on the exam, I have a sneaking feeling those questions have been there for quite a while, but revamped and values and figures changed. That's what I think. So taking a look at these questions, the bottom line is the PMI have invested a plethora of resources on making sure that, on the bell curve, majority of the people are going to choose the correct answer. Majority of the people are going to know where the question is directed towards. On other mock exams, there's not that number of eyes and attention on the questions. So there is the possibility that some questions you experience on mock exams are not as firmed up as the PMI's questions. But if you're on the PMP exam, be rest assured, PMI have done the due diligence. People have seen these questions, tested them. The PMI usually have a window of testing that they carry out. And of course, all of this stuff isn't privy to us, but we can guess a lot of these things. All right, Rizwan. Rizwan says, out of context, sorry for that. Please, can you advise on the best way to remember ITTO's process map? Think of a process and see how many of the ITTOs you can join to the process in the middle. Develop project charter. What goes in? What tools and techniques are working on it? What comes out? Process map. You might have to cheat by opening the PMBOK guide a few times, but if you make it your daily routine to try and dump some of these ITTOs, and then don't stop there, ask yourself, what exactly is this tool? What exactly is this technique? What exactly is this output? All right? Let me share some gold with you. This is one of our PMP bosses, James Rodriguez. He says, how I did it. Now, James has a lot of history with me. We do a lot of training for this group here. And if you haven't checked them out, SHIP, you want to check them out. It means Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. In my mind, the best organization in the world. Best organization for professionals who are engineers. Why? They're always looking to give more to their people. They have done so much PMP training in the past, since 2010 with Praizion, a lot of training. And James is one of the, I call him a project manager of sorts, who has been managing a lot of the training projects. So the poor guy is always coordinating the project, but never having the time to sit down in the class until he said, Phil, I need to get on the learning management system. That's the only way I'm going to do this thing. So he says, how I did it, continuously listening to Praizion videos on Ride into Work for about 2 months on various topics, including Saturday sessions. James is one of our alumni. One of these days, you guys are going to be coming back and saying, yeah, I used to listen to Phil, even on Saturdays. Read through the PMBOK once. Pay special attention to the tools and techniques that are unique from others. Hey, that is an answer. That is an answer to the question that was typed in. Read through the PMBOK once. Pay special attention to the tools and techniques. I'm going to answer your questions as soon as we get done with this, by the way. That are unique from others, or where you find patterns to help with understanding when they are used. The most valuable pages of the PMBOK that help me with this is the overview pages for each knowledge area. That is what I'm saying, folks. 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, all the way to 13-1 is what he's talking about. Overview pages of each knowledge area. Just observing what's common and different for each ITTO, as well as the data flow diagrams for each process to understand how it all fits together. Hey, I have to show you this because I have heard this too many times from students that I just have to make this very clear. James is dropping some gold, folks. If you have not honed into these pages where you've got the 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, all of that stuff, if that stuff is not marked up with a highlighter, then you're doing your PMBOK wrong. That PMBOK guide needs to be marked up with various colors of highlighters in varying degrees of importance. And in addition to that, he's also alluding to the fact that you need to study these data flows. You see the data flows, you gotta study the data flows. Study the data flows. Another student of mine from LMI, Shruti Kaur, she said, Phil, I printed out all of these summaries, printed out all the summaries, read all the summaries. You've got to read the summaries, folks. Read the summaries, and then that's another student with 5 proficients at the time. James is another student with 5 above targets. 4 above targets, 5 above targets, all those students. I found in a lot of instances they do the uncommon things and the uncomfortable things, such as printing out these things and honing in on them. Someone just asked the question about ITTOs. It's that. See. All right, moving on, still on James. He says he took Phil's mock exams. So James took 2 of our mock exams. He took the PMP exam prep camp mock exam. He was close, whiskers away. But then he closed his gaps. But then he closed his gaps. But then he closed his gaps. Why am I saying that? Because a lot of people are in a rush to take mock exams to find out where they are, but they're not in a rush to find the gaps and close the gaps. And that's why you should do the mocks. Not because you want to mow down a bunch of mock exams and find out where you are, but because you want to find out why you are not where you are. And the way you find out why you are not where you are is by the lessons learned from the mocks. Why did I get the question wrong? Next time I see it, how should I be thinking? Exactly what Heather was talking about in the beginning. So James took our mocks. The first one didn't make it, closed the gaps, and then he passed the marathon mock. So if you're looking for mocks to take, look, I can't say it enough. Go to the Praizion site. Pay the $49.99. What is $49.99 compared to $555? Take the ridiculous mock exams, let them kick you into shape, close the gaps, and then go kill the exam. I hate saying it over and over again. I wish I could advertise more mock exams from other sources, but the honest truth is I have not found them. If I had, I would have told you. But I haven't found mock exams that give us the consistent results. When he passed the marathon mock, I said, James, you're going to kill the real thing. I knew it. So those of you who might be wondering, what should I do for mocks? Take the Praizion mocks. Take it, You're going to find value out of it, okay? Just like James. He said, reviewed exam answers I got wrong to determine areas of the PMBOK I didn't completely nail and understand. That is key. You could take all the mock exams in the world, but if you don't take a look at what you got wrong and do a deep dive, you're going to keep making those mistakes, folks. He said, reread PMBOK chapters. So he talked about reading it once, but then he's talking about rereading the chapters that he didn't fully nail. He then says, reread integration chapter, how this all fits together. Integration is like a master key. You can read everything else. If you haven't gotten integration down, how it all holds together with everything else, if you don't have that down, you could get a lot of change management questions wrong. So learn from what he's saying, right? This is big stuff. He said, I estimate it took 2 months at about 10 hours a week. That is 80 hours, folks. 80 hours. 2 months at about 10 hours a week, concentrated between reading, watching the YouTube videos, and the mock tests. I remember James was mowing down these things. He kept taking different mock exams of ours and the online quizzes, He was very self-directed. He then went on to say, lessons learned, while studying, remove all distractions. The PMBOK guide is so awesome. Sarcasm. It demands full attention without distractions to fully take it in. My best studying sessions were while I was on a plane, while I was on travel on a plane. Note cards really didn't do much for me. Reading the book, taking it in by applying it to my role, understanding what our PMO is doing, not doing, where I'm following the PMBOK already and where there are gaps from the PMBOK in my current practice. Praizion on YouTube and Praizion practice test are the main tools I used. While taking the test, pace yourself. Do not be surprised if it takes the full 4 hours. Go back and reread at least the first half of your answers in addition to the marked ones. Your mind takes a while to get into the game, and your first answers on the exam may not have been with your mind truly in the game yet. That's true. This is major, major gold. I want you to go back and rewatch because James is dropping some crazy gold right here. But we're not done. Hold on. But wait, there's more. So he's dropping some gold. This is what he terms as the gold. Adhere to PMBOK terminology. Just because you think it may sound right, but does not literally follow exactly the way PMBOK spells it out, it's likely wrong. 2, handle changes with change requests. Expect at least 20 scenarios. Next step answer could be simply start a change request or follow integrated change control. Listen to Phil, know your weaknesses through his exam results, and listen to his YouTube videos, topics on your weak areas. We may all get some PMP gold, but I think he said he's the leprechaun at the end of the rainbow or something funny like that. So those are James's lessons learned. And there are so many nuggets to be learned from that. Now, when you come on board the Savage on Saturdays Facebook group, you're going to see a lot more of this interaction. Okay? So let me answer a few questions you guys have chatted in. Let's see. All right, so I'm gonna go to the top to read a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed a question from Sachi Guns. So Sachi Guns says, I'm sorry, I went off topic, Sachi Guns. Quality control measurements in control quality and go into QA. So here's the deal. What is QC? Let me give you a very bare bones illustration. All right, so I have this clicker right here, right? This clicker, let's say this is our project deliverable. The deliverable comes out from production, okay? What should be done? We want to check it. We're going to check it and put it under certain predefined tests and find out measurements, length, width, I don't know, whatever, temperature, it could, depending on what that thing is. We're then going to take those measurements and see, are those measurements exactly what they should be? Are they exactly what we wanted them to be? No, they are not. There could be something wrong with the process. If we are getting these quality control measurements that allude to this not being exactly what it should, we need to analyze those measurements. So we're going to take those measurements and they're going to be a feedback loop going back into perform quality assurance. We're going to take those measurements, I don't know, size, width, height, temperature, density, I don't know, failure mode and effect analysis, results, whatever. We're going to take those and we're going to analyze them and we're going to find out what went wrong based on those measurements. So those quality control measurements then become an input to analyzing the process that produced this. And hopefully we'll be able to find out why that process is not in control. Okay? So I hope that helps you, Sachi Guns. I hope that gives you some insights. All right. Another question. Stosh says, thanks, Phil. Another great Savage on Saturday. I'm loading on gold ammo. Okay. Rizwan says, Phil, out of context, sorry for that. Please, can you please advise on the best way to remember ITTOs? So yes, so like what James is saying, print out your figure 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, do your brain dumps, like I said, your memory maps or mind maps as they're called, and that should help. Omer says, any full-length mock tests, free preferably. Honestly, here's my honest opinion about all of this stuff. If there was stuff I knew that was free and was not harmful to the PMPs to be, I would wholeheartedly recommend it. Let me give you all a challenge, because I know some folks take free mock exams. If there is any mock exam that you know about that has a repeatable level of performance that can be used to predict success, let me know, because right now the only one I know of is the Praizion mock, where if you don't get a 70, be very afraid. If you do get a 70, you're in the safe zone. I want to say 100% of the people that get 70 or greater on the mocks in the past, let me be conservative and say the past 3 years, they have all passed the PMP exam. Now in the past 5 years, I'm even going to be a little bit more conservative and say 99.9, because I have rarely seen someone on their first try of a mock and got a 70 that didn't kill the real exam. And on the marathon mock, I am yet to see anyone pass the marathon mock on their first try and not pass the real thing. So it's a litmus test. You know, it's a litmus test that conveys readiness. Readiness. For some odd reason, it looks like I'm frozen, like I just stopped. Hang on, might be a buffer issue. Let's see what happens. Okay, hold on a second. Let me see if I can reset this.